All right, well, it looks like we are getting people logged in and showing up. So again, welcome everyone to tonight's Bike Skills Area public meeting. We've got a packed agenda for you tonight. Before we dig into that, I'm going to ask Jason Kittner from the city to say a few words.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second public meeting regarding the Bike Skills Area. Thank you for joining us. We have members from the City Council, as well as the Parks and Recreation Commission joining us this evening, as well as a number of city staff and your design and consultant team from members of Board and Vellum, as well as the American Ramp Company, and Chris Hoffman and Consular will be leading and facilitating this meeting this evening. We are excited to learn more about what the community interests are regarding this important project and the upcoming Bike Skills Area. With that, I would ask that you feel free to use the chat, engage. This is about hearing from the community this evening. There's no question that's a bad question, so please use the chat function as we get into the breakout sessions. There'll be opportunities for additional questions and Q&A. And really, we are here to learn more about what the community wants in this important area and this important project. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chris Hoffman.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, as Jason said, my name is Chris Hoffman, and I'm the facilitator for tonight's public meeting. And we also have a number of other facilitators who will be working with you in the breakout rooms, and there will be city staff in each of the breakout rooms as well to answer any questions you might have. As far as the agenda for this evening, we have about a 20-minute presentation, and then really the rest of the meeting is dedicated to hearing from you. We've got a number of activities planned, some live polling that we'll conduct, and then we'll follow up on that polling with breakout rooms, and we'll be doing 2 different breakout rooms tonight, and I'll talk more about those as we get to them, but they will consist of a couple different topics, including access and safety, and then design. And then we will report out after each of our sessions. And then we'll wrap up the evening with some open question and answer comment period. And then we'll finish things off at about 7:30 tonight. So just some basic information and instructions. This meeting is being recorded and will be available via the city's Let's Talk page and YouTube channel after the meeting. Your microphones are muted. They will be unmuted once we get to the breakout rooms when we're having discussions. And as Jason said, you can engage throughout the meeting via chat. We'll be doing polling in the breakout rooms and then the Q&A session. So just if you need a refresher on Zoom in terms of how to use the chat function when we're in a large group, if you see the icon at the bottom of your screen, you can click on the chat and then type in your question or comment. And then once we're in the breakout rooms, if you would like to raise your hand, you can do so using the little reaction button and then the raise hand button. And I'm going to turn it back to Jason to provide a quick project overview to make sure everyone's up to speed on the history of the Bike Skills Area project.
Thank you. The Bike Skills Area was originally built in Luther Burbank Park, Upper Luther Burbank Park, in the 1970s when the park was previously owned by King County. It's continued in use in Upper Luther for many years, and the city in 2021, fall of 2021, we temporarily closed the Bike Skills Area for the expansion of jumps outside of the designated area. Following the closure, the city went through a fairly extensive assessment between April and June to evaluate the existing site and seek public input on not only the existing site, but also potential opportunities at new sites. In July, the City Council funded an appropriation request to complete the design to 30% at Dean's Children's Park. And we've been underway with that process since July of last year. We've had a number of public meetings, both through the Parks and Recreation Commission as well in person in this evening, as the design process has been underway, including soliciting quite a bit of public input via surveys and the city's desktop page. We're here tonight to conduct the second meeting. The first meeting was held back in late last year. That was actually on site. And this evening we're on the Zoom platform to learn more about the current design as it stands now and facilitate or engage with the community and add those additional feedback and commentary to the design process, which will be presented back to the commission at the February meeting. With that, I will ask Leslie from Board of LM to step forward and talk about the survey and public process to date.
Yes, hello everyone. And again, thank you so much for taking time out to join us tonight. Your input is incredibly valuable in this process. And so just in summary of what this outreach has been, as Jason mentioned, back in November, we had our first public meeting on site. It was the first time to kind of walk the site. It was an informal meeting to go look and see what the site was, how big it was, what the extents were, how it related to the existing site and the existing playground. It was a great conversation, brought up a lot of different topics, a lot of different viewpoints, and was just the baseline for establishing the design moving forward. We also asked, if you go to the next slide, we also asked participants to just start giving us feedback about what types of features they'd want in a bike skills area. And at the same time, if you go to the next slide, that we were running the public meeting, we were running an online survey that was asking very similar questions. And this got at more specific feedback about who the users were of the area, and maybe potentially what some of their concerns were, and also what the opportunities were. Again, more information to help us refine and further the design. Next slide. It was great feedback about specific features, what types of features, how to break them out, and how they were prioritized. And the next slide. And following that, we did have a first initial draft presentation of the bike skills area. And when that was posted, we had a follow-up survey number 2, which asked participants about what the design was in their minds, how they would rank it, what the features were, where there needed to be work. Overall, an average rank of 6.14 with additional commentary of how we might be able to improve it. And again, really great turnout, about 200 participants, which is really great feedback for this type of project. Next slide. There was a really great opportunity for people to write in some of the comments about the design and where additional work needed or additional thought, where there's potential conflict, and also opportunities that were well done and well praised. Next slide. And we decided to also pose the question of forming some focus groups to really get into the nuanced ideas and themes that we've heard on several occasions at probably all of the meetings, and really have a conversation about those main overarching projects, which we're going to talk about tonight. So thank you again for all of us joining. I think then we'll hand it right off to American Ramp.
Great, thanks, Leslie. So I'm Maddie with American Ramp Company. We've been working closely with city staff and the commission members and the community to update this design, to make edits based on your guys' feedback. So here is the design as it stands today. A couple of important things to note that have changed since the first draft. The big one is we've included a fence on the west side or the east side of the bike park. So that red dotted line is a proposed fence, just to create some physical separation between the existing playground structures and then the new bike park area. We've also looked at adding some alternate entrance routes on the south side of the bike park. So we have 2 options presented that we're still trying to narrow down which one works best for the space. And we also heard from a lot of the bikers in the community that they wanted to see, more features and really utilize the elevation change within the park. So we've added an alternate line with a couple of jump features. So those are really kind of the high level main edits that we've been making to the design over the past couple of months. And then the next slide just kind of shows some, this is where we would propose signage to go throughout the park. So a lot of entrance signs, wayfinding signs along the trails, rule signs. So, you can see there's a bunch of dots all throughout the design. So that's, what American Ramp Company would recommend as far as placing those within the park.
So we're here this evening to hear from the community. The feedback we get this evening will be incorporated into the latest design revision that will be completed by January 30th and will be presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission at the upcoming February meeting. Those are the immediate next steps. So we are looking forward to engaging with you all this evening to hear more about this new and improved bike skills area that's being proposed in Dean's Children's Park.
All right, thank you all. Now we're going to move into our polling portion of tonight's agenda. So the first question is a statement that we're asking you to respond to, and that is, the statement is, the current design addresses safety for all park users. And you should be able to go ahead and complete the poll. I see people doing it. That's great. Whether you strongly agree, neither agree or disagree, or strongly disagree. We'll give folks a few more minutes to answer. We're at about 85%. All right, looks like we're at about 91%. Oh, a few more people clicking. All right, so it looks like about 68% of folks attending tonight either strongly agree or agree with that the design addresses safety for all park users, and about 19% disagree or strongly disagree. So thank you very much for answering that one. And we'll move on to the next question. And that is, how can we improve safety and access for all park users?
Looks like we do have a question in the chat here for folks on the polling. Do you mean all bike park or all Dean's Park users?
I think it's for all, the question is all park users. So think of that when you're answering. So in this question, we've asked folks to choose just one of several options. It's build the proposed fence on the east side that Maddie discussed. Signage, again, Maddie covered that topic. More access points, move the current access point, include an access point for ambulances. And for those of you who said other, because you can't put the other answer in the poll, if you want to drop that, what your other answer is, into the chat, that would be great. So it looks like we're at about almost 90% of folks who have answered. So I'll give you another second or two to do your answer. But it looks like the most popular choice so far is to build the proposed fence. And then right at 41%, and then right behind that, signage and more access points at about 25%. And it looks like there's a question that maybe Maddie can answer. Do the white dots painted on trees around there connect to this project, or does anyone know what they are for?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Chris, this is Elaine Summergren with the City of Mercer Island. This was part of the initial topographic and tree survey that was actually done within Dean's Children's Park, just to get a really detailed lay of the land, understanding what was out there. There are so many trees in Dean's Children's Park that the survey crew had to put a small white mark on every tree they had already surveyed so they didn't lose track. So they don't indicate anything beyond the fact that they were surveyed.
Thank you, Elaine.
We are getting a lot of questions in the chat, but I just want to encourage folks to hang on to those questions. We're going to break out into breakout rooms where you'll be able to have more robust dialogue.
Yeah, really the point of these polling questions is to get you warmed up for the discussion groups, and we'll dig into these topics in more detail in those groups. All right, so we will again, the most popular choice was the build the proposed fence at 41%. And we will move on to our next question, which transitions into design. And the first question is, what is your favorite design feature? And again, this is a select one, single choice, the return line, the playground, the beginner jump line, intermediate jump line, wooden features, and other again is a choice. Again, if you want to drop what your other answer is into the chat, we'd love to see it. All right, we're at about 81%, so we'll give you another few seconds or so to complete the poll. It's looking like the intermediate jump line is pretty popular. All right, well, we seem to be stuck on about 81% participating, but so we'll just as a summary, intermediate jump line, 53% of folks said that was their favorite design feature. Behind that was wooden features at 13%, the beginner jump line at 10, and playground at 7. And there were actually 5 responses with other. So again, okay, so some of the other answers are advanced jump line, the variety of experiences offered to cyclists of all levels. Again, another comment about access, dropping access to the east of the, drop the access to the west of the tennis court. We'll talk more about that in the breakout rooms. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for that question. And we'll move on to our last question before we transition into the breakout rooms. And this question is, what is your least favorite design feature? All right, we're about 75% participation. So if you want to weigh in, we'll give you another few seconds here. All right, well, we seem to be stuck on about 80%. So we will wrap things up, and it looks like the wooden features at 41% are the least favorite. And then after that, there's a number of folks who chose other, about 28% or 8 folks. So if you'd like to, again, drop your least favorite other answer into the chat, we'd love to see that. And then playground comes in at 21%. And then just a few, just one each for the return line, beginner jump line, and intermediate jump line. So it looks like one of the specific answers to other was the elevated tunnel, and that the area is not big enough. And with that, thank you again to participate in the poll. It's been very informative. And as I said, we're going to dig into all these topics in more detail in the breakout rooms. So keep all your comments and ideas in mind as we transition to that. Just a few instructions before we get going. We're going to have 2 breakout rooms. Each will last about 15 minutes. The first one will be talking about access and safety. And then the second will be talking about design. And there'll be a facilitator in each room, and there'll be either a member of the city staff in each room to help with any questions you might have about any of the topics. You'll be welcome to turn on your microphone and participate that way. You can still also participate via chat. And then after we wrap up each session, it will kind of end automatically, and you will come back to the big group and we'll report out. When we do go into the breakout rooms, if the magic of Zoom works for us tonight, you will automatically pop it into a breakout room on your own. If you're having any troubles, we'll assist you with that. So our first topic, as I mentioned, was access and safety, and kind of building on the polling questions. We've got some questions that we're using as prompts tonight. Certainly you can tell us anything else you'd like about access and safety, but basically our questions will be trying to get at more detail about how you responded to the questions on access and safety. If you think there are potential conflict points between park users and where those might occur. And then based on how you answered the second polling question, what one step would you take to improve safety and access, and why? So with that, Tricia, if you could help us transition into our breakout rooms, and we will see you all back here in about 15 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our breakout room. My name is Jenna Franklin, and I'll be facilitating the breakout room conversation today. We have representatives from the city in the room to answer questions and provide you with additional information, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Bluvas. I am a CIP project manager for the city, and I've been helping out in particular with the community engagement on this project. If there are questions I can't answer, don't worry, we'll make note of them and either get them from other staff or follow up after the meeting. Thanks for being here.
And if there are any other representatives from the city who would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to unmute.
Looks like it might just be me in this room.
Sounds good. Feel free to raise your hand at any time if you have a question or would like to make a comment. And we can also utilize the chat in order to record comments. I'll take notes as well so that we're able to report out after our conversation. We're welcoming a few other folks. I see Ryan. Great. Welcome, everyone. We were just going through introductions. My name is Jenna Franklin, and I'll be facilitating today. And Sarah is on the line from the city, here to answer questions. We have about 15 minutes for our conversation, and we can utilize the chat to share, or you can use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you and you can speak and ask questions as needed. And then I will collect the feedback as well through taking notes, and we'll be able to report back after. And with that, we wanted to invite any comments. We'd love to hear more about how you responded to polling question 3 in particular. I'm sorry, pardon me. Did I get off track? Polling question 3. We want to know about general feelings about safety. There we go. Polling question 1. How did everyone feel about the safety elements? Or were there any questions around managing access and safety?
Well, I could go first, but I'm hopeful we could just establish like a group norm that we don't slam each other. There's one person on here who was quite vocal in an in-person session, and I realize I'm feeling very intimidated to speak up right now. So maybe we could just agree to be civil to each other and respectful to each other, and that might help.
Certainly, and
the juices flow.
With that, and that's a wonderful ground rule. Just listen for what people are trying to share, and try and be thoughtful and respectful in how you receive information. Thanks so much. Karen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I think that my thought about safety is that I think what's been really great to see so far is the consideration for the tots using Dean's Children's Park and separating them with a fence from the fast moving bikers who may be already very skilled, or they may still be developing some skills, so a little bit unsturdy. So I really like that. What I think hasn't really been addressed at all in the design is the rest of the area. It's not Dean's Children's Park, it's called Island Crest Park. And right now there's a very quarter-acre bike skills park, and there's multiple acres of additional trails in Island Crest Park. And it's super important that we consider what might happen if we introduce a bunch of bikers to those trails. And so the other users right now include senior citizens, they include people walking dogs with leashes, they include little kids going to and from the ball field. And when I think about safety, I'm really very interested in making sure that all users of the current Island Crest Park are safe and not negatively impacted by the bike skills area. I have no concern whatsoever about adding a bike skills area. These kids really deserve it. I met so many nice kids in this process, and they totally deserve it. My concern is the current users, the multimodal users in this whole multi-acre park that abuts this, and not having that turn into another enormous bike skills park. So that's my 2 cents to start it off. And I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Great, thank you. So just to recap, we're looking at positive feedback around the fence, but a little more attention on the wider park, multimodal users of all ages and skill abilities, seniors, disabled children, families, et cetera, and what can be done as more people are introduced to the bigger park and green space area there.
Especially bike riders. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Would anyone else like to speak? Eric. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Island Park resident, across the way, and a bicyclist. And I've had kids play baseball and things. And I guess I'm concerned about, kids, adults, whoever. I would use the park myself. Actually riding to the entrance of the park. That road entrance gets quite a bit of traffic. Particularly during baseball season, soccer, all of that. And so how are, riders, supposed to get to the entrances to the bike area? I think, might be some consideration to, some sort of trail or, cordoned off area to actually get to it from particularly Island Crest Way. The trail that runs along Island Crest Way, I think there's some bikers that use that, and walkers certainly, but to actually get to the park, I didn't see any sort of access for that. And so, you've got kids, adults, et cetera, sort of riding their bikes down that narrow two-way road going in and out of the park. So I'd like to see, or hear comments about how that's being addressed.
Sure, sure. So really looking more at the approach to the park and the interplay between vehicles and riders and even pedestrians as everyone converges towards the entrance.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. Would anyone else like to talk about safety and access before we move forward? Oh, okay.
I see a hand from Heather.
Heather, go ahead.
Hey, thanks so much. Apologies for the poor AV, but akin to whatever the two comments that were just said, so access safely by the bike riders. I think I have a concern about the transportation or the bike riders coming from the north end of the island, and is there a safe route for them? Along Island Crest, is it possible to get a trail of sorts so they're not having to contend with multiple street crossings? Should we have island bike riders that want to come from the north end to the mid island to access this? And then similarly, the entrance / exit point around 84th Street. We have those two entrances. I live right on 59th Street. So I use both of them frequently, the stairs and then the one just slightly south. If there would be some type of, kind of workaround or something that could run a little bit more parallel to 84th, maybe make it more easy access for the bikes, have it be wide enough so that you could get, an ADA accommodation, and perhaps, easier for strollers that also frequent that. Similarly, I don't think any bikes like running into pedestrians either. So, I think everyone would love to give each other, the right of way, provided the trails are wide enough. I also, borrowing from Utah, and the extensive bike trails that are out there, there's a very well understood, walkers have the right of way, hard stop. And, the bikes need to, just be polite and be courteous. And so hopefully there will be some, education around that. And we can all work together as a community.
Okay, great. So access at the 84th entrance, and really how can that accommodate all the types of park users, bicyclists, people with strollers, families, ADA, and then also looking at just generally, it sounds like the interplay between people on foot and wheels. And also looks like you're saying that it would be beneficial to maybe have some signage or some other way to emphasize who has right of way. All right. Any other comments or feedback? Anything else about potential conflict points and where they might be specifically located? Or steps that you would recommend taking to improve safety and access? Karen.
Thank you. So one potential conflict point was mentioned by Heather, and that is some steep stairs coming down onto 84th. And right now, the bikers are just moving so fast due to the momentum and there's a lot of brush. So it's really screening them, and it's just the cars can't see with enough stopping distance to avoid bikers coming fast. So that's really a concern. And then overall, there's pretty narrow trails through there. Like, I understand a vision that has enough room to accommodate everybody, but that's not describing the reality of many of the trails there. And so I think putting money into the project that would widen those trails to make them safe for multimodal users might make sense. I'm personally of the opinion that, my mom is elderly, she has osteoporosis. If she got knocked down, it could, a fall often kills elderly people. And so I like the thought of education and signage, but I don't think that's sufficient. I'm kind of a belts and suspenders type. So yes, definitely educate the users, put up signage, but we should also put some physical changes there to prevent kids flying down and getting hit by a car just due to their own momentum and physics. And also to keep people safe from getting crashed into by bikers who are learning how to ride. You know, it's belts and suspenders. That's my take.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We just have a couple minutes left.
Thank you, Trish, for the time check. Okay, so great. That's helpful. So it sounds like some signage is great, but maybe some adjustments to the built environment that create some traffic slowing for all types of traffic. It seems to be a consistent theme. People, cars, bikes, and make it safe for all park users again. Okay, thank you, Karen. In our remaining few minutes, are there any other comments? Any other questions that arose that went unanswered around safety and access? Okay.
I guess if I made the other thing I think is going to be an invitation to trouble is up top. There's a new entrance proposed on the very west, and that is where the trails to the park start, and they're very broad at that point, and they look very enticing. So another way to really focus on, you know, where does this problem start? I think right up there we need the signage. So that's the parking lot is ending, there's the tennis courts, and there's this proposed trail to the park. So right up there, signage for sure, and maybe even like one of those styles where you have to dismount. So if you want to enter the park, you can, but you kind of have to commit to walking your bike through a little style, and then you've already got in your head just that physical change. Hey, I need to pay attention here. This is an area with rules, you know.
Right, so maybe some additional adjustments that encourage people to walk their bikes when and where necessary for safety and that sort of thing. Specifically at that new entrance point.
Yes, at the top of the descent where those inviting downhill trails commence.
Sure, all right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for participating in this portion of the conversation. I'll report out to the group on your behalf, and we really appreciate the thoughtful input. And we'll see you back in the main room.
All right, well, I just want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. This is a really exciting project, and it is for your community. So your input and insight is only going to turn around and help you. So as was mentioned, we have a couple questions to get through, and then we'll report back to the group, and then we'll meet up again for the second part. I do ask that when you speak up or share your thoughts, just to introduce yourself. And remember that this is a respectful space, so please keep any negative comments to yourselves and keep this as positive of an environment as possible. With that, I will, just to let you know, Elaine is also here from the city. And so if you have any specific questions about the site or the planning process, then she can help with that. My role with Board and Bellum is more in the public engagement and outreach portion, and then American Ramp has been the lead in the design of the actual bike skills facility. We don't actually have one of their representatives on this group because there's just too many groups, but we will track your questions, and if we need follow up with them, then we can certainly circle back. So with that, I'd like to open it up for just general thoughts about general feelings about safety within what has been proposed in the bike skills area. Sounds like Ryan's got some ideas.
Well, I was just going to do a brief introduction because it's a smaller group here. We've got a couple youth riders from the island, including my son, Nathan. So Nate, you want to say hello?
Hi,
Nate.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 7th grade.
7th grade, and
I'm on the Mercer Island cross-country mountain bike team.
Wonderful.
We've got the Baileys over there, Miles and Joe, will you say hello?
Hello.
Hi. I'm in 6th grade and I'm also on the Mercer Island mountain biking team.
Yeah, and I'm in 8th grade and I am on the Mercer Island mountain biking team as well.
Wonderful.
I'll hop in. I'm Chris Vincent. I spoke at the last meeting, and they even quoted me in the Mercer Island Reporter. My main concern about safety is actually the people who are using the park outside of the bike skills area in Dean's Park. And the question there is that for those people who are walking through the park, particularly because there's lots of children in that area, there's lots of elderly people, there's people walking pets, dogs mainly. What are the plans to contain the bicyclists within the bike skills area, and when they have to access it, to for those people who are using the park, to either make it very safe for the people who are using the park and bicyclists, or to really encourage the bicyclists to enter the bike skills area outside of the rest of Island Parks. For example, from the parking lot where the ball field is, in that area. I realize there's probably some bicyclists who are going to be coming from Lansdowne Lane or 84th Avenue or maybe 59th Street. They're going to, it's going to be inconvenient for them to try and go all the way to Island Crest Way. But what are the measures to encourage people to not use the park as the access? Or if they're going to use the park, to really be respectful of others who are using the park. For example, signage, or we talked a little bit at the last meeting about, and now I'm forgetting the stiles, STILES, like a turnstile, but not an actual turning style, but something to sort of slow down access if people are trying to get to the park. For example, there's a stile on the north end of the southeast quadrant of Pioneer Park to prevent horse and horseback riders from running out onto 68th Avenue from the southeast quadrant, and it works very effectively. It's basically just overlapping fence. And actually, my neighbor who's on this, Rex Andrews, is the one who commented on, like, that's a style. That would be a way to sort of slow down access. A bicyclist would probably have to get off, dismount, or possibly just walk their bike through or slowly ride through it. And that would be a very good way, I would think, of sort of slowing traffic down in the park for bicyclists, not necessarily for walkers.
Okay, thank you. What do the cyclists think when they hear that type of comment about being respectful users of the rest of the park?
I agree.
So how will you behave with respect? What do you think about the suggestion of it, like a turnstile or signage? Is that a good idea?
Yeah. The pedestrians should respect us, and we should respect the pedestrians.
While I'm off mute, Ryan Cuddy, I'm a volunteer coach on the team. I don't really know anything about mountain biking. I've only been mountain biking about a year, but I pick up water bottles behind the kids and generally try to keep relations. As we've talked about it as a team, the couple things that stood out to us on the current design is that we like the proposed fence, and we think that's an important safety feature. We may want to add a gate to allow pedestrians to come through and access, so we don't have people hopping the gate. The access path that's on the that's kind of behind the tennis courts will keep users from entering the roadway and using that busy parking lot. If you go to the east side, perhaps you're putting the kids in the parking lot a bit more. So we like the current design versus the one before. We don't think parking, and we've talked to almost all the kids and adults related to the mountain biking team, and we don't think anyone's going to be, let's put it this way, we have yet to find anybody that says we're going to drive there. Almost everyone feels like they would access it via their bicycles. So parking isn't as much of a concern from a rider perspective, at least among those that we've talked to.
Can I just ask a quick clarifying question?
Yes.
When you say the current version of the path, the access path, you're not the one tonight that was shown with the path between the tennis court and the play area, but the one that actually goes on the west side of the tennis
Correct.
Courts up and around.
Okay, that routes behind the tennis courts.
Right.
It allows users coming from the west side to access the bike skills area without the need to enter that busy parking lot. That's why we prefer it over the east side.
Okay, thank you.
Miles or June, did you want to add anything from a safety perspective? What about the wooden features? We've talked a lot about that. How do you feel about the wooden features?
I think since we live in Seattle and it rains a lot, the wooden features could be a little more dangerous because it's really slippery.
Okay.
I think we're trying to strike a balance there from a maintenance perspective. And so we recognize that there's a need to maybe have some, so maybe the berms, the bank turns where you'd be leaning over, those are the ones that maybe give us the most pause from a safety perspective versus the ones that where your bike could be more upright.
Okay. Anybody else in this group have thoughts about where there might be potential conflict points? If there's any other general comments about the safety concerns?
Yeah, I'm Rex Andrew, and one of the things that I've been thinking about is on the West Trail at the right where the West Trail intersects the hiking trail. I think it's pretty important to have a gate there right at that intersection point, primarily to slow down bikers who are coming out of the BSA and then would be turning down and going down the forest trails, because there needs to be something to slow them down right there. And I'm not sure that we talked about that particular gate. I think Chris talked about gates along 84th maybe.
Yeah, this was actually reflected in the most recent update to the design, was actually creating a tight S curve there to slow down bikers, actually. So this was in response to this particular concern, which we're happy to hear comments on, thoughts on that from bikers and folks who are concerned about bikes exiting or entering too fast.
Would these be bank turns that you could take at speed?
No. These are completely flat, but they're just a very tight turn so that you couldn't whiz through them.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Hey, this is Don Cohen. I had a question that maybe one of the bike people can answer, taking off on what we were talking about the access, the two different potential options on either side of the tennis court. Let's say, tell me, where would a typical cyclist come from? I understand some might live over on 84th in that area and they would come through there, but a whole bunch of people I assume wouldn't, and would come from Island Crest Way along the existing non-path, the existing roadway that cars are on, regardless of which access on either side of the tennis court. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how would people likely enter it, coming wherever they come from. Lansdowne Lane, 84th, Island Crest Way.
Sorry to interrupt. Just want to give you guys a heads up. Just a couple minutes left.
Thanks, Tricia.
Don, I think that's a good question. I wish I had a better, more data-driven answer for you. I think it's hard to say. I can speak just for Nate and myself, as we live about 30 seconds above where the old bike park used to be. We moved out here in July of 21, and we're pretty excited to discover it the day we moved in, and then it was gone 6 weeks later. So we didn't have it for very long, but we would access it via our bikes riding down Island Crest Way. I mean, Nate will ride to school, the middle school, and is very familiar with sort of riding Island Crest Way to get to the middle school. I see June nodding. You guys kind of live a little closer, but wouldn't you probably come up Island Crest and then cut through to the access path?
Okay.
No. Wait, what?
Sorry, I'll pop in and help just with the the street directions a little bit. We live on the south side of the park, and most likely we would ride through the trails in the park from the west side. So that access point that goes behind the tennis court would keep them kind of off of the busier streets.
Okay, thank you.
The status of an east side access to the BSA.
Was that a question? What is the status of an east side access?
Correct.
Yeah, so currently there is not an east side access because of numerous concerns that have been raised through the design. It's something that, you know, if we continue to hear public interest in, we could continue to look at that. But as the design currently stands, there is no east access. And I assume you mean out to the east of Dean's Children's Park with access to Island Crestway directly.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there are a couple concerns there about bikes entering directly onto Island Crestway, but also some of the paths that connect to the school there is having those paths cross between pedestrians and bikes potentially within Dean's Children's Park. So there's
This is Rory Westberg. I don't see how to ask a little question button on my screen here.
That's
So how do
okay. Yeah, you can just you have the floor, so you can just ask away.
Okay, well, I was wondering if you could show the design again, because that was flashed up pretty quickly. And I've seen it a bunch of times because I'm on the Parks Commission, but there were changes that were made to it since our last discussion that I hadn't seen, and it was all gone over quite quickly. And it would be helpful just to get another look at that, and maybe some more explanation.
Yes, Trisha, I think she hopped off. Let me check on that, Rory, and see if we can share that during our breakout session. Sorry, Sam, go ahead.
Oh yeah, it was mentioned in the chat earlier that we could do that. I think if we if it doesn't bog us down too much, I have a copy of it I can share, or if you want to, it doesn't matter.
Okay, Sam, if you could do that, that would be wonderful.
Right, can you all see that?
Yes, can.
So I think the main change from the last one you saw was just this highlighting kind of these two alternate options right here, and then a little bit of this was also changed to have a potential entrance. And then
correct.
And I think the dots highlighting some of the signage. So other than that, there's not a ton different. I believe you all might know different than myself.
Nope, that's correct, Sam. Those were the main edits to the design that was presented to the commission board a few weeks ago.
So
Rory, do you have any specific questions, Rory, regarding that, or?
No, I because we had discussed it the last time, the addition of the access from the playground into the bike skills area, particularly close to the beginners trail complex. And so that just sort of flashed by real quick when it was put up earlier. So I just wanted to see how that was handled, and that it looks like a logical place to me. And then also we'd had a discussion about adding, or as an alternative, to create a access point from on the east side of the tennis courts. And although it would probably take some relocation of the existing benches and picnic tables up above the tennis courts, it looks, from this drawing at least, that that's feasible. Just by way of a comment, I would just say that I think it's critically important that we have that physical barrier between the bike skills area and the preschool playground. And I also think it's critical that we have a totally separate entrance to the bike skills area from the and a separate entrance for the preschool playground. I don't have a particular strong feeling one way or the other about whether it's east or west of the tennis courts.
Okay, thanks, Rory. Leslie, I saw you raise your hand. What were your thoughts?
Thank you. I think Brian had his hand up first, but I couldn't figure out how to do mine electronically. So thank you, Brian, for letting me go first. I just had some, it's my first meeting. I have some questions about the design, and some comments about safety. So, one, I'm interested on why you have these two longer approaches to it versus just coming in through the children's park. That was one question. Two, I'm curious why you didn't use more of the hill to the west. My children that used the previous bike park really enjoyed elevation and enjoyed having some dirt to jump off of. I mean, we can talk more about that in a minute. And then as far as safety, I think the little guys are going to get in there, and then you'll have this kind of clog point here, where you could potentially have kids running along there, and then you have bikers. So I'm just curious on the feedback on that. I'm sure it's been discussed before. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. Brian, did you have some comments?
Yeah, I guess again, add to that, like a basic question is it an either or on these paths? Because if it is either or, I have a strong opposition to the east side, because like most of the kids, I think in prior polls have said they plan to bike there, and why would we make kids bike through a road and parking lot if they were coming from the west side of the island? Like, that seems foolish to make them in kind of tight quarters. So like that, that's Brian's opinion. And then we'd also ask in a prior meeting about an opportunity to open an access point coming directly from Island Crest into the area, and it should be actually thought of as a shared access that, based on, and maybe this has to do with the broader Island Crest corridor design process, but it seems a little scary to make any kid coming from the north and east side of the island have to come in that busy driveway and then enter in the parking lot and funnel to one of these entrance areas where we have a trail that's along Island Crest Way. Definitely could use improvements, but if they could come in there and like get away from the cars from a safety and access perspective, is something I feel strongly in. Like, just really thinking of, as a very frequent biker, as quickly as I can get away from choke points with lots of cars turning, the safer we can all be.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Brian. I know we had been considering multiple access points. I know there are some shared trails that would be involved in evaluating that route. So yeah, I think it's just considering those options and making sure whichever entrance we do propose works for everyone using the park. So I appreciate your feedback, and we are definitely looking into those options. So just high level, this is a portion about the access and the safety. So Leslie, your questions about the bike park design, we will address that in our next breakout session. So those are great questions, but we'll just hold on to those for a little bit. So just in general, if you guys could just explain how you answered that question one, that you feel about safety with the park as it's shown in the design. Could you guys just elaborate if you answered, hey, I think the fence is going to be great, or maybe you're still feeling uneasy with the safety? And I know we touched on access a bit, but if anyone has any thoughts on that, it would be great.
My thoughts about safety are in regards to within the park. I think the fence will be effective, but I honestly don't think there'll be much conflict between those like walking through the park and within the mountain bike park itself. I think that there's a big dichotomy between more advanced mountain bikers and then the kids who will also be using it. And I think it might be worth considering really separating the more advanced components of the mountain bike park from the beginner sections, and putting maybe even the return line between the two sides. Because when you have, I think somebody else made this point, when you have both the advanced line and the more beginner line, like filtering into one kind of cross section in there at the very kind of more south end, this is where people like run into each other and become upset, and that's where I think safety issues are more likely to arise. So really separating out like more advanced from beginner by like maybe that return line would be my thoughts.
Thank you, Tom. Leslie?
I haven't, yeah, I wondered about the actual run and what if somebody fell off their bike? That seems really close to the fence. Is that like dirt between those runs? Again, it's sort of a situation where you're creating kind of these artificial runs where there used to be like dirt trails. So I think that could be if they're elevated, people could fall off of them. And is there room for all of that? And, somebody can take a wrong turn and hand, off the green line onto the orange line. I don't know. Are there fences there? I mean, it's also, sorry, in my old mind, it's become so controlled versus just a dirt path that somebody could just, go off of, and then get back on. So I'm not sure about that. Maybe the designer could speak to that. I consider that a safety issue. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And I think we try to address that with signage, really clear signage, so users know which routes are to get up to the start mountain versus which routes are coming down from the top of the park. But yeah, that's a great point. And we will definitely keep that in mind as we continue to work on the design. I do want to keep moving here because we do have limited time. So I'm curious, do you guys think there are potential conflict points within the park and amongst other park users? And where do you think those conflict points will occur? Rory?
Well, it doesn't really show on on the design map, but it's been brought up that the potential for conflict would be from people using walking the trails in Island Crest Park, in the wooded portion of Island Crest Park, and cyclists coming through Island Crest Park to access the bike skills area.
Sorry to interrupt. We just have a couple minutes left.
Okay. So that's one point of conflict, potential conflict that's been brought up, although I don't know, based on usage of both areas, how much of a conflict that's going to be, but that's one potential area. Otherwise, there's potential conflict between a lot of users arriving in the parking lot and all that, serving both the preschool playground and the new bike skills area. However, I would point out that cyclists can come off of Island Crest Way and they don't have to take the paved road in. There's a trail to the side of the existing restrooms that can be used to access the parking lot and then quickly gain access to the bike skills area.
Thank you, Rory. Brian, you have your hand up.
All right, yeah, thank you. I guess Rory kind of adding on to that, like from this immediate design, yeah, I think this does a good job. I know the trail that Rory called out, that you still have to go into the parking lot, which is where cars are backing up, and so I do have some concerns there, but yeah, that's we'll see where that can go. I know we're coming out. I wanted to acknowledge what Scout called out. There is, from a safety perspective, maybe this is in their breakout session, but the slipperiness of the wooden features that we've called out in prior design times, we're a little worried about, in particular, the wooden berm turns being exceedingly slippery. And maybe this can be addressed by the builders. Like, is there a regimen we can put that wood on to be cleaned more often to avoid that? So we're going to leave that open-ended. Don't have a solution to that.
Great, thank you, Brian. So the last 30 seconds we have here, does anybody have anything that they would like to see added to the design as is to improve safety?
I might move that the entrance to the bike park on the southeast side to the more of the west side where the two trails converge, because that will decrease
Ashley, we'll read the questions to you back. So yeah, how about Nancy?
Oh, there I am. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Because it's got the right. Mercer Island resident that lives along 84th on the west side. And I'm very concerned about the use of the park going in and out of the bike skills area.
Okay, great. Paul.
Paul Burstein, like Ashley, I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission.
Great. Okay. Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Vincent. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm a neighbor of the park, and my interest is in expanding our dialogue so we're not continuing to consider the boundaries of this project as the boundaries of the bike skills area. I want us to think about it in a broader fashion, because the bike skills area will have effects on all the users of the park, and significant effects. I have a long experience with safety issues, environmental issues, and the very small percentage of kind of rogue cyclists who are already use the park. So expanding that boundary and stop, let's not consider the project to be the formal BSA only.
Okay. Got it. Nova.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nova. I was one of the riders on the previous park, and just my interest and passion in biking just carried over to this project, and I just want to see how everything's going.
Great, thanks. And Dave Rosenbaum.
Hey everyone, Dave Rosenbaum. I'm deputy mayor. My interest tonight is really more listening, although I have 2 children who I suspect you may be able to hear, who are not quite big enough for this yet. But
Yes, I am.
But anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I think I got it. Nancy, I think you're logged in twice, but it doesn't.
I know. Why is that? I don't know.
Worry about it. You could leave one. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't think so.
Because I'm logged in too.
Oh, okay. Under Nancy's name. That's it. Who? And do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Wayne, Nancy's husband.
Okay.
Oh, I see why.
Okay, great. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started, and just we're small enough, you could just raise your hand. If you don't have your camera on, you could raise your hand in the on the screen down near reactions. You can raise your hand that way, or you can just unmute and talk. But why don't we go ahead? We're going to focus this group on access and safety. And so maybe just as a starting point, and this is about polling question number 1. So I'll go ahead and repeat it. It's the current design addresses safety for all park users, and you were supposed to select one. Do you strongly agree? Are you neutral? Or do you strongly disagree? And so the first kind of prompt for us is, can you tell us how you responded to polling question 1? So general feelings about safety with the park. And if you agree that it provides safety for all users, why? And then if not, maybe some reasons why. So anyone want to get us started?
I don't think, this is Jennifer Vincent, I don't think we've begun to really seriously address safety of shared use paths with cyclists who have considerably more momentum, if we all remember our physics equations, than even at low speeds, than pedestrians. And we've got people of all ages, et cetera. And again, I'm going to be harping on the extra campus issues, but that was my biggest concern.
Great. So the conflicts of users are kind of your biggest worry.
Just really getting in there proactively and doing something, to educate. Signage is, I think, going to be probably the most important thing. If we keep that west side of the tennis court access point, that brings bikers to the top of the most tantalizing, steepest, longest hill in the entire park. And that's where I have particular concerns. There have been situations of excessive speed there coming around the bend, and also a very long and large trail built off of that.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to add to that? Design features as far as safety that might be concerns and maybe cause conflicts between users?
I share Jennifer's concerns, but I'm also curious about access points in and from the general park and from, I can't tell from the new design, is there, I don't like the idea of the access points on both sides of the tennis courts, but is there one at the north? There, it looks like there was one proposed at the north side of the park between Island Park School and where the proposed BSA, is that in the new design? What happened to that?
Patrick, are you familiar with the design details of the new one? I can pull up the site plan.
I'm not familiar in detail other than just looking at the site plan. The current site plan does not show access from the north.
Okay, so they removed it, in other words, since our last meeting. Is that the deal? Since the last design that we saw.
You mean, Nancy, you mean the access from the playground? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about access to the bike skills area from Island Crest Park. I mean, Island Crest Way, the school. I mean, the street between the school and the park. At the
access from the east. Yeah, no, that went with the last plan.
No, okay.
That
All
was
right.
untenable. Yeah.
Can you see the plan? No.
It was there and then it went away for me.
How about?
You're down somewhere else on the.
No,
there you go.
Here I am. Okay. Down here.
Okay, so
Bike park.
so at the furthest north where the red, yeah, right in there, there was supposed to be there was originally another entrance there.
Right.
Yeah, looks like.
Well, and
yeah,
it went alongside the fence heading
Right.
east and then led out onto Island Crest Way. And the last iteration of this plan that I saw, which was actually the previous meeting, it was gone.
Okay. Okay, so this is the revised design, so it looks like it is gone. So yeah, which is good.
It was actually the last revision. I mean, there was that where it was gone already because some of the commission had pointed out that the access path cut right across the only entrance to the park through that fence from the school. And then it also created an opening onto Island Crest Way from a preschool park, which was untenable as well.
Okay. Anyone else have comments or insights into sort of either why the park is safe for most users? That was a highly rated one in the poll, or why there might be issues with safety and access. Anyone
So
have?
I also noticed that north access point, the northeast access point was eliminated. And what we're seeing on your shared screen is different from what is on the Let's Talk. The Let's Talk updated document for tonight does not show that path to the east of the tennis courts. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to be commenting on. Are we commenting on the document available on Let's Talk, or are we commenting on the document that you're sharing on your screen?
The one I was sharing, because Sarah from the city of Mercer Island. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, just to let you know, there's a couple minutes left.
Oh, great. Okay.
Oh,
boy. Yeah, Sarah put in the chat that the Let's Talk version wasn't updated yet. So the one I just showed with the access removed is the most current. That was from the PowerPoint shown tonight.
Okay, so I'll just comment that to me, I don't see the point of having these two access points pretty close together and eliminating completely that north access point, because you're going to have a lot of pedestrian, school children, and bike traffic coming down to the other access points, which are pretty close together, without a north access point. So I think having one north and one south would make more sense.
Anyone else feel the same?
And this is Paul Bursting. I believe in the last commission meeting, we actually spoke about and recommended a north access point as
Right.
well.
Correct.
So this, oh, well, this is the latest design as of that commission meeting. Doesn't mean that it won't be updated again.
Okay.
Can I get a clarification on that? When we're talking about north access, are we talking about access through the playground fence or what?
I don't think we can cut through the playground because it's
Right.
city
So
school
how would we have
property.
north access? How's that possible then to have a north access? Because the
There is
playground
a-
goes
there
through.
is- There is a trail that goes along Island Crest Way from the school down through the park and beyond, continuing on through the sidewalk. Past the Island Crest Park.
Say that again. I'm not sure which one you mean. And I'm there all
There
the
is
time.
there is a trail that goes along Island Crest Park, coming from the school. Basically, it
Right.
takes people off the street and
Right.
onto the trail away from the road.
Do you mean the trail that traverses Dean's Park?
It's parallel, it doesn't traverse through.
Okay.
So
Mm.
it looks to me on this latest design that the proposed fence was extended in such a way that it would kind of cut off that trail that you're speaking about, Paul. Because the trail already exists.
Why don't we, when we go back to the group, which is going to be in 15 seconds, we're going to get booted out of here. We can have them bring up the revised design and go through it again.
One other comment I have before we go in 2 seconds is the lack of discussion about signage.
So is this unstructured? We should just kind of talk, or did you, I was just
Yeah.
kind of, how did you structure this?
Oh, so we would like it to be a little bit more organic, so please feel free to speak up. If we're not getting a lot of conversation, I might poke and ask some questions, but we really just want to make sure we use this time to hear from you all and give you time to speak. So please jump in if you have something you'd like to say.
Well, I guess, I mean, I could, my mic's off, so I guess I could talk for a second if you want me to.
Sure, please do.
Yeah, so, and again, so this is specifically on safety, right? This is not the design breakout, this is just safety.
Just safety,
Got
and
it.
we are kind of short on time tonight, so we won't go around the space and introduce ourselves.
Okay.
But before you speak up, if you could just say your name and maybe where you're from, that might just help orient people with why you might be interested in this topic.
Yeah, so my name is Jay Greer. I live on the south end of Mercer Island. I think I know about over half the people on here. I'm involved in actually the Mercer Island mountain bike team, as are some other people, like Brandon, who's on here. A few other people are listed. So yeah, in terms of safety, generally I'm pretty happy with the way the designs come together. The one thing that we've been bringing up, so we've been bringing up this wooden feature thing, like you've been hearing that a lot from the bike team. So what's tough is we like the design, and actually I love wooden features, right? Wooden features are really cool. Duthie has them, lots of the parks have them. But in the Pacific Northwest, as we all know, things tend to get slippery, right? They tend to get moss and mildew on them and tend to get slippery. So that's why I would say the bike team overall, and I think I'm going to try to represent the bike team and someone in the biking community here, has some concerns around, particularly the berms. We think that straight on jumps could be okay. By the way, we understand, and so Jason, just so you know, we understand why you want wooden structure. Like you want wooden structure so little kids can't go change anything, right? We're trying to create a design that everybody's comfortable with, that you feel is safe enough and everybody agrees, and that it can't be changed. So I totally get the objective. We just worry a little bit about the wooden thing. And by the way, if you do fall on wood, it's pretty rough. Like I've actually had a fall on wood, and it's a lot rougher than falling on dirt. So anyway, you'll hear the bike team again and again talk about the berms, the wooden berms that were in there. I think you had a lot of them in the original design. We pushed back on that, and I think some of them were taken up, but there's still a few that are in there. So from a rider safety standpoint, we have some concerns around that. I think we're less concerned about the jumps, because when you hit it straight on, that's more okay. I think we still would want, as the bike team, we still would want to talk to the ramp company at some point, like how to maintain them. We could actually help you guys maintain them. But we do worry, just like my driveway gets, it's in the winter here, it gets a sheen of like slipperiness on it. and we worry about anything wood getting that sort of slipperiness that you don't have with dirt. So that's sort of one, I would say that's maybe like the biggest, from a rider standpoint, the biggest safety thing. And then maybe just, I'll finish and I'll let other people talk. In terms of the access point, we kind of liked it west of the tennis court because it kept people more coming from that direction out of the park. What we're trying to do is keep people out of the parking lots, quite honestly, keep riders out of the parking lots. So we like the west one a little bit better. And then early on, you remember we were pushing, is there some way to weave in an access point coming in off of Island Crest that doesn't dump you into the parking lot? Right, because there's a way to follow. I was trying to look at it. I haven't spent too much time over there, but there's a way to follow that fence in and have it connect in and not come into the parking lot. Was again something we brought up. I just repeated myself there. But then the third thing, and I'll stop, was is there a way to have little ride arounds like sometimes like actually at Duthie on almost every jump except the super advanced stuff, they have bailout points where if a rider's coming down into a jump and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have my speed right, I'm off. And they can bail off to one of the sides and basically go around the jump. And often beginners at Duthie, for example, can ride pretty advanced trails. They just skip all the advanced stuff is what they do. So you can turn an advanced trail into a beginner trail by skipping the advanced things, right? And then I just said I would stop at 3. My last one, I got some design stuff, so I'll save that for later. So I can be done for now, and you can turn over to somebody else if you want.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Jay. Ryan, did you want to add to the conversation?
The points that Jay brought up are obviously very well thought through, and I mean I agree with all of them wholeheartedly. They make a lot of sense, especially in a wooded area that through a lot of the year isn't going to get a lot of sunshine. It's going to be moist, damp. So I mean I agree with all those. If he has further points, I'd rather let him bring those up. I'm not going to bring anything up that outdoes any of that stuff. So I'm excited about it. Whatever we end up with.
Someone else want to share? Oh, I see, Laura, you put some things in the chat. The West, thanks for asking the question about the wood. That was my concern too. Laura's a new biker. The west entrance could be fine. I'm wondering how to keep bikers slow or off the surrounding walking trail. Anyone have any thoughts on that, Jason?
Sure. So that's been a discussion point throughout the design process. And so if Katie, I don't know if you can actually pull up the graphic, but on the west entrance, we're looking at what they call sort of like an S entrance, where it's a more narrow trail, and it's got some additional turns to it to actually slow the riders. That's a design feature to actually slow the riders so as they enter the facility. There is going to be a small segment on that west side, the west trail entrance. There is a small portion of that trail coming from the parking lot, immediately out of the parking lot and into where the trail sort of wise off into the bike skills area. That would be a shared trail. And so signage has been conversation point, different trail features, whether it's different material type, whether it's again, slightly changing the alignment of the trail, perhaps widening the trail there to accommodate multiple users on that very short segment is something that we're looking at as part of this design process. But really the big change in the last design was to sort of narrow the path, narrow the trails that enters into the park, and then add the S curve to it to again slow riders as they enter the facility and keep bikers safe as they come in and out of potential contacts or interaction with other users in the park.
A great question, Laura. Is there anyone else who would like to speak up?
If not, I can go a little more.
I want to say something.
Sure.
Yeah, we talk about safety for the overall, for the bikers, and also for Island Crest Park. I live right at the exit on the west side of the Island Crest Park on 57th Street. So the main concern I have before we talk about safety, we should think about the purpose of the park. What is the purpose of Island Crest Park? If we allow the bikers to get into Island Crest Park, no matter what we do, it spoils the purpose. It damages the purpose of the park because of the environmental impact, because of the safety concerns, because the hikers' right of walking through the park freely without concern about safety, that has been damaged. If I have to step aside for somebody coming down the slope, that really violates my purpose of walking through the park. So, and if I get hurt, I will be really upset. Okay. So, shall we think about what is the purpose of the park? How do we preserve the purpose and enhance the purpose of the park?
If it's okay, could I make a follow-on point? Kind of.
Sure.
Yeah. So, just, I mean, overall, the purpose of the park really is for everyone to benefit, right? We even have horses in the park. Regarding that particular point that was just brought up, we did meet with, and I wasn't in the meeting, so Brian Shires was in the meeting, but we met with Jim Stanton. You know that group, right? The Neighbors in Motion, and they really represent the road cycling group that's on the island. It's a pretty big organization, and we actually talked about that. So it is true, that point that was just brought up. There is a downslope, and I believe it's at like 84th and 59th. Does that sound right? It's like a downslope that kind of dumps out, and riders do come down there, and it is a little fast, and we're trying to figure out ways to work around that. I think someone on our side talked about putting in a crosswalk or putting in something to try to slow that down. But in talking with Jim, I know, and I'm just, I wasn't in the meeting, but I'm relating the notes from that meeting. It was between Jim Stanton and Brian Shires.
Sorry to interrupt, Jay. Just
yes.
We have a couple minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Well, wait, should I stop? Oh no, that she was just telling you my time. Got it. Okay. He talked about rerouting that so bikers wouldn't come down that. They basically would go parallel to the road, like just a little tiny like tail on the trail to kind of basically you were talking about, Jason, a bend that would stop the riders from going down that and direct them more parallel to the road, and then give them like more of a gentler drop down. And that was something Brian brought up. I wasn't at the meeting, but if you talk to him, you might be able to articulate that. But we do acknowledge that point that was brought up. There is this decline, this downslope into the road that isn't, we agree, that isn't ideal.
May I follow up? We keep talking about safety. I'm saying, how do we preserve the purpose of the park? Or enhance the purpose of the park?
I might not quite understand what you mean by that, because it seems to me that that's what we're trying to do is preserve the purpose, which is open space and activity space for all types of users, and we're trying to do it in an area that is going to be safe and provide a good opportunity for that.
Well,
maybe I'm misunderstanding.
To me, the purpose of the park is for hikers be with nature, not to concern about accidents, and preserve nature. And so there's damage when the bikers go in there, and there's safety concern, and it destroys the harmony.
So if I may, I'd like to just provide a little bit of background too. So the area that we're talking about for this proposed bike skills area is the former footprint of the adventure playground within Dean's Children's Park. This area was identified as preferred area because of the urban forest environment that was there. What was that?
30 seconds.
Okay, so I'll be very quick. So short answer is as part of this project, we will actually be restoring and enhancing this urban forest area between the trails. And so it'll actually be enhanced, and the environmental impact will be actually enhanced as well through this effort prior to what was there previously.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good breakout room discussion. And now I'm going to ask the facilitators from each room to do a brief report out of some of the key topics, themes that they heard during the discussion on safety and access. And I'm going to start with Elaine.
I am going to share this with Leslie. I believe she was actually the facilitator on this one, but I'm sure we can tag team it. There are a number of different themes that we heard in our group. We heard a lot of talk about the potential for different access points and the pros and cons of those access points. We had a question about a possible access point to the east again, which has been brought up through the design on several occasions. Let's see, Leslie, feel free to jump in. I won't be offended.
Yeah, there was a question about the connection to the trail on the west side with the proposed trail going around the tennis court, just with the connection of that trail to the rest of the trails would be like, and whether or not there would be some conflict with other park users. Overall general concern of just how bikes who are accessing the bike skills area are going to interact with other users of the park, elderly, children, people like the other users.
And then I would say one last safety concern that did come up again was, and this falls somewhat in the safety and somewhat in the access, but is about some concerns about the wooden features being slippery, especially the banked turns where riders may not be fully upright, but maybe off at an angle, and that could be a little concerning to riders from a safety standpoint.
All right, thank you, Leslie and Elaine. And now we'll go to Maddie's group.
Great, thank you. So I think our safety concerns were similar to Leslie and Elaine's. So there was a lot of discussion about just accessing the bike park. I know some of the bikers expressed concern and having to use the busy roadway to get into the park if you're coming from the north side, and just concerns with kids having to use that type of access to get into the park. So just ways to look at how we could create some shared trails with other users to create new entrances. We also talked about some of the trails that are merging and how we can prevent collisions and just congestion within those areas. We also talked about some of the signage and how it will clearly identify which trails go which direction, so there's no wrong way riders. And again, we did hear some concerns on the wooden features and how the weather could affect those.
All right, thank you, Maddie. And next up, group 3, Susanna.
Yeah, so let's see, our group talked a lot about some of the things that we've already heard in this report out, but mostly about conflicts between users, addressing the safety of the shared use paths, that cyclists, even at low speeds, can cause conflicts with pedestrians, and that maybe proactively educating and providing good signage throughout the entire park would be beneficial. There's the steep hill, I think, at the north end that brings excessive speed, and so that needs to be managed somehow. And then about the access points too, and our group was wondering if we could bring back up the design, the most recent design. I don't know if that's an appropriate thing right now. Great. There we go. So there was some concern that the two entrances kind of close together are going to create congestion, and that maybe there should be a north-south access point again. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, somebody from group 3, but that's kind of what they talked about. And then again, the importance of signage. That's about it.
All right, thank you, Susanna. Next up is group 4, and that's Jenna.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we had a lot of similar feedback, a lot of interest in how different modes of park users walk wheeled, etc., and different age groups would interact. Specifically, whether or not access points to the park, steep stairs around 84th, narrow trails were safe and really set up for all types of users to be comfortable in using them. We also heard about north-south, up and down island access to the park. So whether or not there's sort of like a preferred path for people getting to the park that was safe, especially on bike, and then also along Island Crest Way during times where there's quite a bit of traffic, in particular on sports seasons and things of that nature. An interest in signage that would both emphasize when to walk your bike, who has the right of way, and then also built environment adjustments that could encourage walking where needed, and things like that. And just really looking at, access, where there would be quite a bit of intermodal access and what that would look like, a better sense of how that would be managed for everyone.
All right, thank you, Jenna. And our last group, Katie.
Yeah, so our group echoed some of what we've already heard, but we did talk about also the safety of wooden features, and in the Pacific Northwest that they can at times be slippery and quite hard to fall on. We also talked about the shared use spaces and safety for folks that are walking or hiking or there to enjoy nature, and how they might interact with bikers. Also wanting to talk about the entrance points to slow riders as they're coming into the park, not just for other pedestrians and other uses, but different levels of skill sets on bicycles. So wanting to make sure that everyone is safe as they're entering the space, slowing them down and possibly using curves to help slow riders as they're entering the park. Just wanting to make sure that we honor the real purpose of the park and all of the users and all of the needs of the park users.
All right, well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, facilitators. And we will go into our next breakout room. And this one is focusing on design. And some prompts for you to consider are based on what you answered about your favorite and least design elements. Can you tell us more about what you like and dislike and why? Of the features you said you disliked, can changes be made to change your views on them? So modifications to some of those elements. And lastly, is there anything missing in the design? What else could be included to challenge riders of different ages and skill levels? So with that, we will work our magic again and assign you to your breakout rooms, and we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes or so.
Okay, well, welcome back to breakout session 2. We're now focused on the design features. And we'd love to know, based on the questions that you answered in the polling, what your most favorite and sort of least preferred design elements are and why you like or dislike them. Is there anyone who'd like to jump in and start? I know in the larger chat, we heard something about the large tunnel, and we've heard about the wooden structures. Eric, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, I guess I'm a mountain biker, 58-year-old guy. So, I've been doing it for a while. I'm just, I don't want it to be too dumbed down, I guess. I think there needs to be, similar to Doothy Hill, which I think you guys, know about as kind of a success that we have in the area. There's sort of something for everybody. Now, I don't think I don't think the space is going to accommodate double black diamonds, nor would I, actually recommend that. But, I think that intermediate and sort of some longer downhill sort of stuff to just take advantage of some of the elevation. Ultimately, it's got to be fun, or not only myself, but and probably especially the kids, the middle schoolers and the high schoolers are going to get bored of it, right? And so we're going to spend a lot of money on an asset that we have, sort of, I'll say, one shot at or so, to get right. And if it's too dumbed down, I don't think that the kids, if I say that, including myself, will probably get bored of it, right?
Yeah.
And it won't necessarily get utilized. Whereas you look at something like Duthie Hill, it gets so much love from the community. People are constantly giving back to it and riding out there too, and really improving their skills. It'd be great to see that sort of resource, albeit not as big because we don't have that much space, but here on Mercer Island.
Great. So I like how you finished. Keep people loving it. Make it, appeal to a wide enough group of people, and they can skill build and really get use out of it over time, and take advantage of the elevation changes and things like that to make it a really interesting space to use.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Would anyone else like to share? Feel free to unmute. Zane.
I'll go, yeah. I agree with Eric that we need to make sure that it's not all of its small features, and because people, including me, will get bored of it. And for the more advanced riders, there should be more advanced options. And here, give me a second. You can come back to me.
Okay, no problem. I'll put a placeholder in my note and we'll come back to you. Would anyone else like to share while Zane is pulling together some additional feedback?
I don't really have anything to share. Ryan, I'm the recreation manager for the city of Mercer Island. I guess mine might be more of a question of, and this might be for Zane actually, looking at what was at Luther Burbank Park originally to where we're going now, if this new model looks to be meeting more needs for the island residents than maybe what the previous version was. I'm just curious. I guess I'm doing a check to see if we're on the right track here.
Well, I would say, majority of people, literally everyone that I know that went to that last park has said that they do not want wooden jumps because wooden jumps are, one, scary, just for no reason. A jump the same size will be much scarier if it's a wooden jump, just because it's it could be slippery, it could be unstable, it could, it's a lot harder. But I also feel like we should have more berm turns, because we had one at the last park, and it was this big one to turn back around after you finish the line. So
I crashed on that one, Zane, when I tested it out on my kid's bike. That was a poor decision on my part.
Yeah.
Zane, I'm going to ask you a novice question. Did you say it's called a burn turn?
Berm.
Berm. Berm. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to take the note correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that it's great that this process is letting the bikers define what they would like and provide the feedback. So I say whatever the bikers are telling you guys, we should listen to. And then I know I'll say this, but my thought is the design didn't really address yet the safety of Island Park. So please add a little bit in the design. And I love, Jenna, how you summarized that by saying education and built environment. Pay attention to that, just to protect that park and those park users.
Yep, and I am just to reemphasize, I am taking more extensive notes that we share back to the city on all the points of feedback. So thank you. And design features that promote safety throughout Island Crest rather than just in the smaller bike and skilled area and playground area makes sense. All right. Are there any features, particular elements of the design that you really love, or aside from the wooden component that you really love, or you're not seeing, you're seeing like, it's all right, but it could be better?
Well, one part of it that I really like is the jumps made out of dirt jumps, and like the larger jumps. I would also think it would be cool if we had like wooden features aren't all bad. Like drops, most of the time those are wooden. That's normal. Like there's rollers, you go up and down like it's and then you do a move called the staple where you push down like it's a stapler. And then but for jumps more of the time, because like everyone learned on the dirt ones, they want to ride the dirt ones because they feel natural and they're like softer and it feels easier to take off most of the time.
That's a great point. Thanks for that detail.
I don't think it was called out. Is there actually like a pump track incorporated into the park? Is that what that little loop is? Is there a feature called the pump track or anything like that?
A pump track?
Yeah, I can't recall from.
I don't think we do have a pump track. I'm looking at, I know that's something that's been requested a couple of times. But I think it's been maybe more limited to, again, those kind of wooden features and.
Yeah, the pump track's usually dirt berms that.
Yeah, pump tracks like you go up and down on it and then you turn. It's like this circle.
Yeah, so nothing like that right now. I think, partially, and I know you guys have been engaged in this process throughout, so probably have heard this, but partially just due, I think, to the maintenance of those components. So I think, one thing, it sounds like there is a lot of interest, especially from the bike riders, to swap out some of those wooden features for more dirt features. On our end, I think we need to figure out how long-term we'll be able to maintain that. I know that riders were really involved with the last park and kind of maintaining and helping to build and everything. So I think if we are to kind of make some swaps, we at the city need to figure out what that long-term upkeep plan looks like. So still more to come on that one for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a good community service model around that. Certainly Evergreen, the mountain bike group in the state, rallies people. I'm sure that if you build it and do it well and literally provide shovels and lunch from Subway, then I suspect the mountain bike team would come out, with the proper guidance and the Mercer Island mountain bike team, come out and do maintenance and things like that.
You're gonna pioneer the off-leash area version of community involvement for bike parks.
Yeah, you'd be amazed at the amount of community support that the mountain bike community throws in. There are people, that went out and got their chainsaw certificates to go out and clear trails because the DNR, the state can't afford to do that. But every weekend after a big storm, there's tens of people out, clearing trees, in a safe manner. They're certified, all of that stuff. So, I suspect that you could likely get that. You could probably get Evergreen to throw in on the community part as well. Days of service, certainly Microsoft, Amazon, Starbucks, others. Mercer Island is a pretty easy place to get to do a day of service.
That's a great suggestion.
So if that works, for Parks and Rec, and then people get to give back and all of that stuff. Great.
Any other feedback before we get pulled into the main room again?
I have sort of one, I'm going to pick on Zane again a little bit here, I think. One thing I think about a lot with my role is sort of the social aspect and those opportunities for gathering And I don't know, I'd be curious what your input, Zane, is on those opportunities in this design. And I don't know if we've covered that yet in discussions, but if there's a spot where when you're not riding, you have that area to hang out in. I don't know what that looked like at Luther Burbank necessarily, but I'd be curious what your thoughts are there.
Well, I think the container idea is like a great idea for this reason, because like you could have the lower one where the bikes go into it, and you could also have another container on top of that where people could like hang out, which is what like me and a few of my other family members were saying, like that would be cool because of this. Back at the other bike park, the spot where you would drop into a different section, there was the main section where you could drop in and do the full line, and then there was also the section where you could drop in and do the trick jump where you go to the right, and then you could just do a different line when you go to the left, and you would just hang out up there if you wanted to hang out, and that's where everyone, like during our like jump jams, which is like a jump competition, we would like spectate from up there, and yeah.
So Zane, would it be helpful where you have those locations for some sort of shelter? I know you mentioned the container.
Yeah, I think it would be cool to have like even just something like what we had at the last park, just an area kind of designated for, because that was like the area where you would go in, but it wasn't designated exactly for hanging out. So like it doesn't have to be exactly only made for hanging out with people, but like an area where it's like, you can hang out there, and then like, just like something for people
sort
to
of
meet
like
up
a
and talk.
spectator,
Yeah,
like an area
something.
to spectate
Yeah,
and
like
make friends and chill.
So I think if it is the container, it should probably have something to see out of. But if it's not, it should just be an open area,
Yeah. Okay.
So there's not like trees surrounding it.
Zane, so just an area that's away from the lines, so you're kind of out of traffic.
Yeah, in a way. But like closer to the lines, but like not too close to the point where it's like intersecting with them.
Great. Any other input on design features? This has been great feedback, really helpful.
I guess I have a question too, for the bike riders. Zane, I know you mentioned that wood features are scary. Is there something aside from, trying to shift design more towards dirt features? Is there something that would make wooden features more enticing? Is there, are there education programs that we can coordinate, or, opportunities to come train? Are there other ways that we might be able to kind of entice people to come, even if they are a little concerned about, never having used wooden jumps before or anything like that?
Well, I think what a lot of people are scared of is not just the wooden jump itself, but mainly like the fact that it's these planks like stacked up in front of each other. So if it's like one big board type thing, like it could be those planks underneath, but just like a flexible plywood board on top of that, I think. And then you would put like the grip tape that you would put on skateboards, you could put that on there, and I think it would make people feel a lot safer on it, because there are portable bike jumps that you can like fold up, and they have like that grip tape on it.
Sorry to interrupt. You guys are almost out of time.
Sure, sir.
I'll make a comment on the jumps. The wooden ones, jumps or berms, I think if they're well designed, and we have professionals doing this, right? So they know they're using high quality wood. I think there's a lot of times when jumps get designed by kids or others, even adults, they're not quote unquote engineered. They're not using pressure treated wood. So that, and that they don't have either the grip tape or chicken wire on the top of them. So yes, they can get slippery, but they can be designed such that if they're designed right, they're certainly safe, and they're lower maintenance and less less of an issue than the dirt ones. But I will say that, they will have to be replaced at some point. They always do. They always
Yeah.
have to. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't be super concerned as long as professionals are building them.
Great.
Great.
We're all gonna get kicked out in a few seconds. So
Thank you
stay
for your
tuned.
feedback.
I can just finish
Before
my
we
sentence.
fire up, I hate to take up anybody else's time. Is there any discussion about the material choices for the fence and berms and fencing?
We are not there yet, as far as I know. It's, we're just kind of in that conceptual design phase, but, open for discussion if you have ideas.
Well, the North Bend Park has a wooden or 2-rail, 3-rail fence and some berming, which is kind of a nice natural break.
Yeah.
I'll send some pictures next time I go up there.
Sounds good. Okay, I think we're all
Is
back.
that, does that keep toddlers from going through there, Salim? I've never been up there.
Yeah, I have to remember the exact kind of delineation, but they have a ball fields and bike park and skate park all kind of jumbled together, and it tries to keep people from mixing unintended zones there. There's also a parking lot for a Les Schwab or something, and so there's some fencing that separates that.
I know very early discussions, we have talked about matching some of the design that we've done in other parks, which is a split rail fence that is actually lined with a coated vinyl chain link, which is a nice mix of those two things. But certainly this is very early for getting into such the details, but I think that'll be the next phase after we get the basic design nailed down.
All right, so let's bring it back to the overall design of the bike skills area. Let's start with your favorite feature, and then we'll move on to the least favorite and any other topics. So who's got a favorite?
My favorite feature is the, I guess, intermediate jump line because, yeah, it's fun.
I too enjoy the intermediate jump line. It's just, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And
Leslie, I wonder if while we're talking about design, do you think it would be helpful if I brought up the design so we could look at it while we talk? I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I just remembered to record, so we are now recording.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea, and then we can reference back to it.
Okay.
Any thoughts on some of the, well, I'm on the actual features themselves?
We talked in the earlier breakout about wooden berms from a safety perspective, and I think we covered that. But the idea of some of the wooden ramps and the lips, we very much in the biking community understand that from a maintenance perspective that's advantageous. So we get the reason for that. We just may want to think about like what's the plan for like how do you clean the jump lips so that those don't become a problem over time. But like, again, we realize it makes it much more durable. And so it's just more of a maintenance feature for the wood that we just don't drop it and leave it.
Okay.
I had a question about the direction of flow. Is the idea they're going sort of counterclockwise or clockwise in these, both the intermediate and the beginner loops? And as the return, again, as a return, are they going from north to south? Are they going from south to north? Because it's not clear from looking at this map, the actual direction of travel. And I've lived here since 1993, so I'm pretty familiar with the topography of this particular area. And that area between 15 and 16 is quite steep. It's a little valley, basically. And I would think it would be a challenge for for bikers, because I've ridden a bike, I rode bikes myself a lot, is that going down and up in a narrow area, I just wonder if that's a feasible, is that something that bikers would say like, yeah, this is easy, or no, this is not something we can easily do. And again, what's the direction of travel?
Oh, go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say my understanding of this, which I'm not a rider, but we have the start hub at the very north end there, which you can see is the circle. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's the circle at the top. And then you have the lines flowing to the south from it. So the green and the blue lines. And then they get down to that nexus point with the orange lines, and those are the return lines back up to the start hub.
I can just jump in on the that area there that goes into the ravine between 15 and 16. At the first meeting, the in-person one, I believe the design at the time did not include that, and I can tell you that from the mountain biking community, we thought that was actually a missed opportunity to use an area, a natural area of the landscape that was pretty appealing to us. So yeah, to your question, Mr. Vincent, we thought it would be a nice thing to have, and we were all excited to see it added to the future design, giving folks kind of an opportunity to either go left or right at the fork if they aren't feeling comfortable about using the ravine for their riding. But I think most of us that attended that meeting and walked it and looked at it thought this would be a great thing to incorporate into the design.
I'm really curious from the riders. I'll just ask, we haven't heard a lot of feedback on the bike playground, and maybe that's because it tends to be for even younger riders. And I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts about the inclusion of the bike playground, which is this purple area that's meant to be for, you know, really early stage mountain bikers, right? Just getting into it.
I'll just break the silence by suggesting that if you don't have it, then you have the little ones on the larger, more intermediate features. So something to think about is, you know, where will the little ones be when the older kids are using some of the bigger features if they didn't have a place?
The playground is just a great place to warm up, fool around, and get our muscles loose to get ready for the bigger and more fun features.
Great.
I do agree with Councilman that having a dedicated space it would be advantageous for the young ones. From a design perspective, number 3, that berm, I assume it will be flat enough and at a junior enough level that they're not going to be falling off what appears to be a berm. That would be, I assume it would be age appropriate, Leslie.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sorry we don't have images of it, but American Ramp has showed these really great images where it's very, very moderate.
Yeah.
Very doable for those who are on striders or trikes.
As long as I'm off mute, the only other thought that we had about some of the features themselves is that even on the green features, sometimes kids approach those and then they're like, at the last second, they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. And having a ride around feature built into the design prevents more impact to the vegetation. I know there's concern about kids building paths or paths of convenience. Inevitably, some kids will approach it and think, I'm not ready for this, and then they're going to go around the jump to try to continue on the trail. And if you build those ride arounds into the design early, it'll help.
Right.
And I think this, on that same point, this feature number 4 may act like a choke point on a circuitous route that may make it less efficient. You really want people circulating. And I'm not sure how wide the ingress egress is on that tunnel, but it looks like a single bike width. So, where people are doing different speeds and might want to be passing or going side by side at some sections, that will become the point where they can't do that.
So just to be clear, 4 is in the bicycle playgrounds for the little kids.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, it's intended. But I know how that could be used by multiple users.
You know, if you go to Duthie and you go down to the bottom meadow, there is a small children's playground as well. That is very kind of undulating, mild bank turns and bumps. But it does have a capacity to hold quite a number of kids at one time, but it doesn't have any choke points.
Okay.
So it's really more a comment about, is this going to become a choke point that might limit the number of people that could be on that circuit at one time?
Okay.
Tagging on to that is the question of what is the capacity of this bike park? Because it looks like it's big on this map, but when you actually walk the area, it's not very big. I think it's what, a quarter of an acre. It's not a. So is there going to be any sort of recommendations for limiting the number of people at one time, or limiting the number of riders who are on these various paths? Because I would see that as a safety issue, as if you have too many people, too many riders, they might collide.
From the cyclist, do you somewhat kind of self-regulate how that goes? Like if there's too many people, do you take turns?
Yes. When you get to that start hub, what you'll find is that they'll stack up there, and then they will back up into the routes that go from south to north, the return lines. So that's where, if you have a line, that's where they'll back up. I mean, I think this will be popular with some of the kids initially, but you know, like a lot of things, it sort of will, I think, even out with time. But on, you know, nice sunny days at Duthie, you'll see 4 or 5 bikes lined up before they will go. I think that's a lot more popular of a destination. I don't think there's going to be a destination for off islanders. So I'm not, hard to say without the data, but they'll back up in the start area and then down the return lines.
And from the cyclist standpoint, if it is crowded, what's to prevent the cyclist from saying like, oh, there's a whole park west of here with lots of trails that are even windier and even steeper than that's what's in the bike park? I would see the bicyclists, if they got frustrated, would say like, I'm just going to go out into the park and ride around in the park.
I want to know who those kids are. I say that tongue in cheek only because our bike club is mostly cross country, and all of the kids want to do the jumps. So if the question was, I can ride cross country or I can wait in line and do jumps, the kids that we coach on the team would universally wait in line to do jumps versus go and build their endurance riding cross country. But you make a point. There may be some others besides the kids that aren't willing to wait in line, that may choose to go elsewhere. I believe there's probably parts of Pioneer Park that are open to bikers today that they might choose to go in. But Nate, what do you think? Would you go into Pioneer Park and ride in Pioneer Park, or would you wait in line to ride the jumps?
No, probably most people on the team would always wait, no matter how long the line is.
Sorry to interrupt. We just have a couple minutes left.
Oh, go ahead. I have one more question after you.
Last thing I'll add is that maybe from a management perspective, if you don't want people sort of stacked up and waiting, and you also don't want them laying their bikes over where it could be on vegetation, if we put something at the beginning, maybe near the kid area, where it's these bike racks where you can just put your seat up on the rack. They're very minimalist. They're not a significant design feature, but it would prevent bikes. It's not a big bike rack, but it's a thing that you can put your seat up on, and the bike will remain upright. That'll lead to fewer bikes being laid across the trail as kids either maybe take a water break or talk. So just something to consider.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I had one question about the wooden features, because I know that there's been a lot of concern expressed about how slippery they get. Would they be more appealing if they had some kind of feature on them that kind of helps reduce the slipperiness? I know there's definitely been talk about, there's going to be maintenance, of them. So the moss and the algae will be cleaned off on a regular basis. But if there's like some kind of mesh or like gritty stain or something that's on there, would that kind of help with the concerns about slipperiness? I know not necessarily about, you know, impact when you fall on it.
Well, I think that a lot of wooden features in a beginner area is kind of a hazard to most. They can also seem very scary and impending, and most people will want to go around them instead of riding them.
As a person who used to use the suspension bridge frequently, the Parks Department would try and put down that gritty paper, and within a month or two, it was gone. It's really, I think, really a challenge to keep a gritty traction surface on wood. That suspension bridge, they finally just took it down. It was too dangerous.
Yeah, it's a challenge in the Northwest.
Another data point might be the stairs that go down to, is it Mercerdale, right?
Yeah.
It goes down to Mercerdale, or that goes back up to First Hill. I run those stairs occasionally, and the paper on those wooden steps does make a difference, but it does seem to be, to Vincent's point, replaced from time to time. So whatever the maintenance schedule is for that paper might be a good data point.
Okay.
It makes a difference though. If you step on the wood with your tennis shoes and it's wet, you're in trouble. But if you step on that paper going down those stairs, you're usually okay.
Okay. So we have about 30 seconds left for any last thoughts, ideas, comments on the design, or if anything's missing, anything should be enhanced. We didn't get a chance to talk about signage and the design and layout of that, but that could also be something you guys could think about and submit comments on.
Since we have 10 seconds, the one thing I would say about the split rail fence is if you can lean a bike on the fence, that kind of serves the dual purpose of a bike rack as well as. Looks like one of the boys has a question.
Hello again.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Okay, so we'll jump right into the design portion of our conversation. So that first question is based on what you answered for favorite and least favorite design elements. Can you tell us more about what you like or dislike and why? Brian?
I'll lead off if nobody else is going to go there. Favorite is the diversity. So it's awesome that we have a park that can actually serve a wider range. I'm very familiar with the old location. So like, I think that's the bonus of this park. Like it serves a wider range. So that's cool. Maybe the least favorite is we hit it in the safety as well. Like the heavy use of the wooden features, which are like both a positive, because I actually consulted with some riders who've ridden a park in California that this American Rent Company's actually built, and they pro level riders, like their jumps are amazing. But like my only concern there is placing them here in the Northwest. Like again, I think it just needs a management or a mitigation approach, and they can be safe because there is validity to a very consistent, jump lip, being able to be very consistent and get the same result and probably minimize overall effort and maintenance. So that's goodness.
Great, thank you, Brian. Who else? Scott, I saw you had a comment about a dirt pump track. Do you want to speak into that a little more?
I can talk about it. So this same company makes a pump track, but a paved one, like it's blacktop, in fact. And I think the most recent one went into the SeaTac Park. And it's very rideable during all seasons, even when it's pretty wet. And I ride mountain bikes on wooden park features all the time, and they're really not suitable for younger riders until they're really used to like managing the slipperiness that exists almost all the time on them until it's like dry for multiple weeks on end. So here in the Pacific Northwest, it's just not a great strategy. I'm sure they add a textured feature to those, to the wooden ramps, but still, I think it's pretty limited unless you're staying in like the straight ahead direction. So any of those curves I think are a little bit more challenging for more beginning riders. So I agree with Scout completely that, and I wouldn't say dirt pump track though. I think it needs to be a blacktop one.
Great, thank you, Tom. Again, so if anyone can just speak into, so what you like about the design, what you dislike, and why, and then perhaps if there were any changes that could be made to those features that would change your view on them.
Can you put up the features again so we could see them and comment on them specifically?
Sam, can you share the design again, please?
Yeah, do you want the, well, I'll just share my screen.
Perfect.
So there's two.
Yep, that one's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the tunnel thing kind of seems cool in theory, but I've seen a number of those and they're really, they provide nothing. You're just riding through a hole and it actually isn't any fun, I would say. You do it once and nobody cares to go through it again. So if it's any significant cost, I would say that we could forgo that for something more useful.
Great, thank you, Tom. Anyone else want to discuss what you like within the park, what you dislike, and why? Okay, so we'll move on. Based on the design that you see, is there anything missing within the design, and what would you like to see added to address that?
I put something in chat, like it feels like we're not fully utilizing our packing in the space. That it feels like there is an advanced line opportunity kind of to the west of 15 and 16. Like it feels like there is additional space. That's actually the kind of the steepest that ravine gets, would actually be in keeping with an advanced jump kind of in parallel to 15 and 16 as something I'd like to see. And then doubling back on, my biggest concerns are the wooden berm turns is like extremely slippery. Like we have those at the mountain bike park here, and in the winter we pretty much avoid those. So
would you prefer those to be dirt?
Prefer those to be dirt. Like they're just and a berm is like pretty low consequence as far as maintenance goes. So like it's not going to get changed, which I know is another concern with the jump. And then one more, like, I guess, wish list, and I don't know if it exists, it's not kind of detailed on here. Are there ride arounds for each of the jump features? Because I do fear that like someone comes up to a feature and doesn't have the right speed. I'd like to have a very specific ride around versus becoming a social trail and creating some conflict of trails are being expanded. Well, the kids are just being safe and not taking a jump at the wrong speed or something. So is that something that would, in particular, maybe in the intermediate jump line, are there ride arounds planned?
Yes, so that is something we will address in the design. Typically, the jumps would have the option to roll them, so they are rollable jumps. So they do not require, there's no gap jumps or features similar to that.
Okay, maybe that addresses it then. If you can just roll them, then ride around's not required.
Leslie, did you have Scout, your hand is raised.
Hi, Tyler Bates, Scout's dad. I guess, well, one thing I really appreciate was the access path by the tennis courts to get everybody out of the street and away from other park users, I guess. I was wondering at the November meeting, it seemed like there was a strong consensus for a pump track, and everybody kind of nodded, and seemed like there was absolutely space on the north end. And we don't see that in the design. And I was just kind of wondering what happened to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've talked about multiple options with the city and different staff members, and this is the current direction we are headed with the bike park. However, we are still having conversations with the city. So if that is a strongly desired feature, it is being considered. Okay, anything else missing in the design that you would like to see added?
A question, because it seems we have a minute or so. The feature is 5, 6, 7. As I look at the pictures right there, they're slightly elevated wooden features. Is that right? So kind of like the orange path is like the smooth path, and that other path is like a slightly, it's like minor scale development, very beginner line. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and you know, as long as that's clearly signed, that kids know they're kind of going. I assume that if I recall, that's slightly uphill. So you need to enter that knowing that's a little bit challenging, or
Yes, correct. Leslie?
And I guess, again, I would just say, how high is this fence going to be? I mean, I think when kids are on an elevated structure, if it's not a high enough fence, I mean, they can run into the fence, they can fall over the fence, whatever. And again, somebody mentioned this beginner area being at the entrance. I mean, could it be put up here in the north corner where it says Start Hub? Could it be like part of the children's park and have a different entrance? I don't know. It's just, I think we all had a concern about that. But
yeah. Could the fence be a hedge? Like we're trying to talk kids easily flowing back and forth. Like falling a hedge is probably a lot less.
Yeah, I remember they had a construction element there before for the last couple of years, and the fence was fairly high. But if you're on an elevated structure, I don't know. Kids, they can veer off of the elevated structure.
Oh, I'm gonna veer off.
My kid would just bonk off it and then go the other way. But yeah, that's so falling off these elevated structures, falling into the fence, that's a concern. And then in the middle here, is it, I mean, you show trees, but is it just dirt? I mean, are the kids, yeah. Are they going to be able to create their own jumps? Is there going to be, or are you going to keep it? I guess that's my question. And
yeah, great question. So the design was built around the tree survey. So no trees are being removed, which is why some of those lines might not look like they make the most sense, but they have to flow with the current trees. So that was one aspect. And yes, the city will be working on adding new vegetation to those areas. So restoring some of that site. So the plan is to create the trails in such a way that there will be no additions once it is built. So no community additions to the park.
So you're going to try to keep the line there. Yeah, it's really, it's been defoliaged pretty effectively through the other uses of it. So it's going to be a grow back, and it's not, the trees aren't that healthy right now. Between 15 and 16 is quite a big drop, and I think the kids will get some speed there. I mean, that's pretty exciting. I think that'll be a good run for the advanced kids.
Scout.
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Yeah, Scout, anything else? A question I have, like in other like very similar size, like Redmond Bike Park has a very similar kind of layout, very limited, just a small little jump area kind of for the neighborhood users. a thing that I think is cool there is they actually offer this like bucket of like watering cans, and we go from being super wet to super dry, and so allowing users to add water into the surfaces to keep it kind of in kind of top shape would be a nice addition. I don't know if that's anything that could be added. Like in Redmond, it's actually like I've seen the city staff arrive. They like fill this huge bucket, and like you just take a garden watering can and walk along, put some water in the trail, and that helps the durability and improves the surface for riding as well.
Does that keep the dust down or keep it from eroding or just kind of keep it?
It keeps it from getting in biker terminology, getting bombed out, where it becomes just a total dust and like not fun or not safe to ride on. So by kind of staying ahead of it and keeping moisture on the track can help it. It is funny how we go from too much water to like suddenly.
I like giving the kids, I like giving them some ownership of it. I mean, my son was one that was building a lot of the jumps before. So, I mean, they had a lot of ownership of it, and they felt very proud about it. And hopefully the kids will feel that way about this one.
Sorry to interrupt. We just have a couple minutes left.
Thanks, Trisha. Okay, so right now it looks like some things we like about the park is how diverse it is, and it has a little bit of something, for each user. We like that there's an access path kind of on the south side by the tennis courts. Is there anything else within the park that you're feeling good about that we want to share with the group, or does that capture it?
I give a big +1. I think Leslie hit on it, that addition of 15 and 16, which were not there in the first design. Like that's awesome. We're taking advantage of the natural slope because it is a fairly flat area, but like as much as possible using the natural slope.
Thank you, Brian. And it looks like for dislikes, it's really kind of the wooden features that could become slippery. Perhaps the tunnel's not the greatest feature. Anything else within the park as is that you would like to see changes to? Okay.
I would like to see that baby area moved from the entrance. I'm going to say that again for the fourth time.
Okay, got it.
Several people mentioned the addition of a pump track too, so that that thought shouldn't be lost.
Yes, absolutely. So I have that. So what's missing in the park is maybe some more advanced jump lines on the west side, maybe some ride around options for the features. There's been a request for a pump track, and then maybe just ways where kids can have some ownership and help take care of the park.
I love the ownership part. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I got another addition.
Yeah.
If you mentioned signage to keep beginner riders off of intermediate trails. I don't know if you're familiar with a filter, which is kind of a filter feature, which kind of looks scary but isn't really scary, like maybe a 1 foot drop or something that a younger user who maybe isn't reading trail signs would look at and instantly go, that's not the trail that I want to go down.
Great, love that idea. Okay, excellent. So we've probably got about 10-15 seconds. Anybody want to add anything else?
So this time we're going to focus on the design elements. So did showing the map, did that help understand where that north access point went away and where things are now? So can have that kind of in your head as we think about design. So based on what you answered for your favorite and least favorite design elements, can you tell us more about what you like or dislike and why? Anyone want to start that off?
Oh, is that
Nancy? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that I put my little hand up, but okay. I didn't remember doing that. It seems to me that it's a lot going on in a small area. And that's actually what worries me the most. The whole project. And yeah, and just where it is and where Dean's Park is, which is intended for preschool originally. And I think that's what Mrs. Dean had in mind, or Dr. and Mrs. Dean had in mind, in honoring their ideas. Yeah, I understand that there will be some areas in the bike skills area for little kids or preschoolers, but I just think it's a small space with a lot of potential users, and don't know what the oversight's going to be, who's going to be in charge of any accidents and things like that.
Okay.
So safety, safety, safety.
Okay. How about, oh, Nova just left. And looks like we have a new oh, there's Nova. Hi. Anything you like about the park design you want to talk about, Nova? Being a rider?
I personally like most of the features they put in there. I do have a slight problem with the wood because it gets wet here. It rains a lot. There's no avoiding that. And they haven't explained, because there's different ways to treat said wood in order to make it better and like actually not that bad to ride on when it's wet. But there's no prior explanation of that and how, because once the wood gets wet, it's practically unrideable. And if kids aren't made aware of this, I'm just saying it could cause some incidents at that point. That's what I'm mainly concerned about. I also agree about how there's a bunch of stuff going on in one like tiny place. That was another problem at the park. But I think at this park, we're going to include much more signage, which is a luxury we really didn't have last time. So it'll be much more clear of where you're supposed to go and where not, because not only will there be signage, there definitely will be enough space and clear separation between a trail, and it won't just all be one dirt patch as it was with the previous park.
Okay. Great. So the signage will help a lot, and that separation. Anything else anyone wants to bring up or discuss as far as maybe some options, design type features that might help some of the conflicts and things beyond signage?
I have one question, and that is it restricted to only Mercer Island bikers, or will other areas of the community outside of Mercer Island have access to it?
Patrick, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I'm only guessing, but this is a community park, a public park. I don't think there's any legal way of restricting the only islanders.
Anyone else have input on the design features they might like or are concerned about, and maybe things you've thought of that might be helpful to kind of mitigate some of the conflicts or make things even better?
There was a discussion last time about having some kind of barrier so that kids would have to walk the bike instead of riding the bikes through the park. And I haven't heard anything discussion about it today.
Okay, we could ask about that when we go back to the larger group. And it looks like we have a new person. Kate, did you have anything to add on the design?
Hi, we're just kind of listening, and my family's having dinner right now.
Okay. Okay, no worries. Okay. All right. So anything?
Can I say one more thing? Sorry, I talked a lot before, but
there is a lot going on within the BSA. I was a little bit reassured by what Nova said, it sounded like that was going to work out okay. But it gave me an idea. I don't know why. It would be lovely if the signage within the BSA was, by the same company and very consistent with, stylistically the same as the signage that we're intending to put up on the trails in the park outside of there, to just kind of make it seamless. And cyclists who are paying attention to their signs within the BSA would then recognize signs elsewhere in the park about, yield signs, watching your speed, how to consider a shared path. Just having the signage be seamless and the same stylistically inside and outside the BSA.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good thing to do. I think it would just psychologically tell our riders, as well as those of us plodding along and walking, that this is part of the same overall project, and to just get their attention.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Anyone else have input who hasn't spoken? Dave, Paul, anyone else? Ashley? Nope. Okay. Is there any other, this might be more for the users of the park, but of the bike park, is there anything else that could enhance the experience? Different features that could be added?
Oh, wait, sorry, Kate, you go.
Go ahead.
Hi, so we've got a lot of girls up on Mercer Island, and some of them are interested in doing gardens and like sponsoring gardens. They have a silver award and a gold award project.
Sorry, Kate, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Did you say gardens?
Yeah, gardens. There's a group right now that's working with the Pea Patch program and helping to restore some areas of the city pea patch. And I know some girls who do bike and would be very interested in potentially doing one of their award projects, helping out with the gardens in the bike park.
Great. Okay. Anything else, Nova?
Personally, I think the design of the park, like other than the wooden features, is practically almost as good as you can get for a park this size, because of course there are size limitations with everything. However, this I feel like is about as much as you can get in here for like all levels, depending on because you can have some advanced riders doing more advanced things, and it won't interrupt the kids because they're all separated. And just the separation on everything makes sure conflicts normally or rarely will ever arise.
Huh, okay. Great. Okay, looks like we have another new person, Heather. Just want to give you an opportunity to talk if you want to. Are there design features that you find favorable in the park design or that you'd want to see improved?
Yeah, sorry for the late joining, but I think I think it's already been mentioned, most of my stuff earlier in the chat. So there's nothing super pressing right now. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Anyone else have any other insights?
I just wanted to mention, I put a comment in the chat that I defer to the writers on this one because they are the ones who are going to be using it and know what would work in that space. So I really appreciate having that voice in our group tonight.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, this one went much quicker, so I'm not sure how much time we have left, but is there anything else you're curious about the park? No, it sounds like it's been a long process with a lot of opportunities for input along the way. So that's kind of nice.
I'm looking forward to seeing some kind of an elevation or schematic of how the landscaping is incorporated, because I've heard kind of tantalizing bits about it within the park, but I know that's later on. That's a different sort of feature.
And I also noticed, I went and walked it the other day around the tennis court, and there are new plants being planted right now. The city is paying a contractor to put in, there are all these new plants. So exactly where they're putting in all these new plants is where they want to put the path on the west side of the tennis courts. And my other question is, isn't Dean's Children's Park slated to be the next park to be redone? And how does that fit in with this BSA?
Maybe a couple of the parks commissioners maybe know about that. Paul or Ashley?
Yeah, so that's going to be slated for, you're correct, later this year, most likely. The two plans will intersect with each other. They don't need to be done at the same time.
And what about the planting that's going on right now?
That has not been discussed previously. We'll have
Yeah,
to
there are
go back
hundreds of
to,
black pots. Sorry, excuse me.
yeah, we'll just have to go back to the city staff and try to understand what's being planted and the reasoning for it.
I'm not familiar with that either, but if assuming that there are plants that are being planted right now in the location where a future path will be located, when that path is constructed, those plants certainly would not be destroyed, but they would be removed and relocated as needed. But yeah, that's a great comment.
Sorry, I thought you were done. Excuse me. This is a very boring topic, but I just wanted to get it out there. So maybe at a future time we can talk about it. And that's the parking. Most of the kids are not kids, riders. Some of them are not kids. Will be arriving on their bicycles, but the parking lot for Dean's is so tiny, and the one for the ball field gets so full. We had previously kind of bookmarked that as something to come back to, and I guess I'm going to do that again. So if you have one or two cyclists park in the Dean's lot, and that bumps a family of preschoolers out, they have to park out on Island Crest Way, and I mean, I'm past this stage, but I wouldn't want to be unloading little kids on Island Crest Way. And the ball field lot, I mean, I walk through it every day. It really varies. I mean, if there's anything going on there, it can be absolutely overflowing. And at other times, there's hardly anyone in there. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but I just wanted us to not completely forget it.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Seems like parking is always an issue anywhere.
Yeah, I just have this nightmare of people trying to get a stroller out of their car on Island Crest Way and a baby and a preschooler all at the same time, and wanting them to be able to have those. There are only 10 spots for Dean's, and then I think it's 9 spots, 1 disabled spot, but at any rate, there aren't a lot, and that's not a safe way to walk from the ball field parking lot to Dean's. There's no sidewalk. You can't walk on the side, even because there's plantings. There's just no way to walk safely if you have, well, whether or not you have young kids. So just something that needs to be thought about beforehand.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. We just have a couple minutes left.
Okay, great. Nova, were you trying to raise your hand?
I was just gonna bring up how parking last time was affected, because normally we'd have about like no one parked there. Like there wasn't even any parking spots, and you could have basically everyone would just bike there. That's how it most of the time worked. And I would say this location's even better for biking for everyone, because last time it was way on the north end, and this one's more centralized. So I would suspect that this could also like just have kids bike via the island, and it would be more or less unless you need to bring someone who cannot bike there, then that would be, and I would say that be probably be like 1 to 2 cars possibly. But most of the time, there's almost 0 riders bringing cars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate Jennifer's comments about that. And this is another reason why I think the north access point, the northeast access point would be helpful during times when it might be more crowded, which would probably be on a weekend. And my kids basically grew up at this park. And by 3 o'clock, we're always home for afternoon nap. And so I'm not so worried about the daytime because young kids nap from about 2:30 to 4. And so I would be more worried about the weekend times when you might have sporting events, filling up that ballpark parking lot, and overflow parking could be at the elementary school parking lot, and they ride in through a new.
Welcome back, everyone. I want to just take a sec to reread the prompt questions in case that might inspire some folks to speak up. Based on what you answered in the poll for your favorite and least favorite design elements, can you tell us more about what you like, dislike, and why? You know, we talked a little bit about the wood structures, but it'd be great to hear more. Of the features you disliked and changes you made to them, to change your views on them, is there anything missing in the design? What else could be included to challenge riders of different ages and skills?
As usual, I have lots to say, but maybe if you want, I could let others weigh in and then I could talk, or however you want to do it.
Laura, were you trying to speak up or? Nope, go ahead, Jay. Take it away, Jay.
Okay, cool. Okay, so just going back to the original, I know we call it Snake Hill, or at least in the biking community, and others don't always call it that. But if you look at the ability level of the riders that were using that, I mean, it was a wide variety, but the jumps themselves were quite large. And I know that may have been one of the problems, right, that you guys were trying to dial back on. But my point is there's a pretty large core rider set of like intermediate to intermediate advanced riders on the island. So my concern with the design, and by the way, I love for the little kids, the little bike park, I love the age range. And actually I want the age range and the skill level to be as broad as possible. My concern, it's not really a concern, but it's hard to tell what it really looks like just looking at the little schematic. But I want to make sure we don't lop off the more advanced people, like advanced intermediate, like that sort of advanced thing, right? And that's been sort of my fear. And when I saw the original design that didn't go into the ravine, that was a big concern. Then we kind of came back and you guys added the design folks added the jump line down into the ravine. So you saw that like one of the top items that was picked was intermediate jumps. Is that higher level, making sure that there is this higher level that's in there. And I know it's scary. I know it's like, oh, we want it to be, of course we want it to be safe and all that kind of stuff, but of course, but I just want to make sure the truly advanced rider doesn't get totally like lopped off from this, or even intermediate advanced, that it doesn't get sort of watered down and become like a, sort of a beginner thing. I don't see it becoming that, by the way. I don't actually, but I just want to make sure that upper level rider has someplace to go. And it's hard to see, on the schematic, you're looking down on it. So it's hard to see like how big are these jumps? Like, what is this thing really going to be like? And it's hard to tell. So anyway, that's something that I'm pushing, and I'm really just trying to represent. You see that number, right? When you say what are the most important things, you see that intermediate rider is there. They're out there. There are a lot of them on the island, and we just want to make sure that they get represented. I don't know. And I know it's scary. I know it's a little scary.
So can I ask a follow-up question, Jay? So are you saying that what I'm hearing is the intermediate line is good as it's, in terms of the technicality, the technical skills that it's offering for the riders on the island. Perhaps the beginner line is not sufficient?
No, it really gets down to, I can't quite tell. Like it's hard for me to tell what we've got looking at the little piece of paper. That's my point. And I know that it's, the designers added in the beginner playground, which I think is the bike playground, which I think is great. I love that it's going to be this huge, I want it to be a huge age range and a huge skill level and not be just a beginner thing. And it's not like you adding that second line is great. I can't quite tell what's there. Like, it's almost like we need to go, maybe someday we could go out and just like walk around out there and like talk about how this is going to work, you know?
Okay, so the other interesting thing too, I would heard in the first session was the bailout line. So these
Yeah.
bailout. So I guess to your point, if you have a more technical line and someone doesn't feel comfortable doing it, if you have the bailout line, then it gives them the option to still ride the rest of that jump line and not do those specific features, correct?
Exactly. That's it. And Duthie has it. Duthie has on some of the jump lines at Duthie, some of them are crazy high. Like, I am afraid of them, but I can ride with my kid, will go off them, and I ride around. And we meet. I'm like literally riding parallel to him. We go down to, like, I'm right behind him. He goes off the jump and I cut right and I go around the jump. Some of the jumps at Duthie, and nothing like that is on here, but some of the jumps at Duthie are called gap jumps. Like, you have to make it. If you don't, it's like a jump up with a gap. If you don't make it, you can get injured. And I personally don't do those jumps. And that's not in the design here. I know that you're obviously, that's not what I'm pushing for at all. But having a more advanced jump line, it doesn't have to be a gap line, just more advanced jumps with bailout points. So literally a beginner could ride an advanced line. They just go around it all. And, you know, it makes it gives it more options. Like, it sort of helps everybody experience it. You know what I mean? I don't know. But there is something to that where it's hard for me to tell what until it's built, or until maybe we walk it. Like, if you and I, maybe a designer, were to like walk it, like, okay, this is what this is going to be like, you know, you can get a better vibe. But by the way, stepping back, I love this project. I'm so thankful for you guys to be driving this forward. So I just want to say that.
Laura, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess, so the one thing that I've noticed from this space, and I just love this park and this space. I right now live in a nearby home. I'm a renter, but I've been coming here since it was the adventure playground. It's like a safe place for me for, you know, the last dozen years to come to this place. And so, you know, I love the sequence story of this land getting to have a new story and a new chapter. But it does seem like, I haven't been to Duthie before. It seems like a lot to fit in a fairly small space. I don't think of it as that huge. So is this, I mean, would an advanced rider, I mean, is there enough space, I guess? And how, I'm having a hard time with the scale of it. So I kind of, maybe like Jay, would love to walk that and see, how do you have these advanced places and a whole children's area and keep them separate and, you know, yeah, just fit them in. But I'm thrilled. And I'm wondering if you've partnered, like, I'm a PE teacher in Seattle. I know we have bikes for our kids. Are you partnering with the Island Crestway or the Island School with their PE program, or do they have bikes? And what kind of use do you think this will be as a developmental thing to teach kids how to, you know, get hooked in biking? So those are just some questions. I can't ask too much about design because I'm not enough of a biker, especially a mountain biker. Like, what equipment am I going to need to get for my teenage kids so that they can go and try it too? You know, I mean, I guess, is there going to be a sign like, hey, this is what's recommended before you go out here? So I'm sure helmets, but I don't know what else.
Yeah, so a couple follow-up questions, or a couple follow-ups to your questions. So the design does, so before we began like the formal, like, hey, let's talk about what types of jumps we can put in here, we did a topographic survey, a survey of the entire, you know, area, a tree assessment survey. So like, we've looked at this area very carefully, and it's been meticulously data pointed out for our, you know, our cartograph team, essentially, that goes in there and puts it together. And so the lines that have been proposed will fit in that area as designed. So that the answer is yes. I know it's hard to imagine that space until you go out there and walk it. I totally get that. As far as partnering with the school district, to the level you're talking about, we have not talked to the school district at that level in terms of like programming or like involving the kids in sort of a bike program. It's something that, it's an interesting idea. The district definitely knows about this project. We talked about the project early on, about the location of it, because it's right next to Island Park Elementary. So they have been involved in the early conversations about this facility, but not from a programmatic standpoint. But that's an interesting idea. I think one of the pieces that I enjoy about this design is, it, to both your and Jay's point, is it does seem like it's being designed for a wide age group, which I think is one of the elements that we heard from the Parks Commission and the community that was important to this function of this facility. So
We're about halfway through our time. There's about a little over 6 minutes left. I just want to make sure folks feel welcome and comfortable speaking up if there's something else they'd like to talk about the design of the park.
I'll just, if it's a moment, our
Sure.
Parks Commission Chair, Jody McCarthy, is on this chat, or this video conference. So Jody, is there any specific questions you as the chair haven't been answered this evening that you want to, you'd like to hear from other community members about this project? Is there any burning question that you have out there that we haven't addressed tonight?
Yeah, I really appreciated. There's been some really great, thoughtful feedback. Because I also don't know very much about bike skills, but I love this project. I think for me, what I was wondering about was how is it all going to fit together with Dragon Park and the timing of building it? So do you have any information for us on that?
Great question. So Chair McCarthy is referring to the parks levy that passed earlier, I guess late last year. And the first playground that's up for replacement as part of that parks levy is different playground features. It's not all of the playground features in Dean's Children's Park, but there are, I believe there's 2 playground structures that are up for replacement first and foremost. And so we are in the early stages of designing that project and getting a new playground design, but the integration and coordination with this bike skills area is extremely important. And so we will be working with our consultant teams on both projects to make sure that they align and that they are coordinated. We don't have a design picked out yet, obviously, for the playground. There's going to be additional public engagement that goes along with that. But the design that you're seeing here, and I think one of the important features is what we've heard is trying to keep the spaces separated, but still allow opportunity for crossover, right? And so how do you do that? And so you see that proposed fence, but there are access points through the fence proposed in this facility. So it will be interconnected to the playground replacement. How, when, what does it look like? That's still to be determined as part of the public engagement process. And we are, as you know, Jody, we are working towards hiring a consultant to help with some of our master planning processes that are teed up for Groveland and Clark in particular. And one of the pieces that we've talked about internally is trying to coordinate that public engagement with some of these other important elements like the playground replacements, because the last thing we want to do is oversaturate, but we want to make sure people have enough opportunity to still participate, engage, and provide feedback along the way.
Thank you for that update, Jason. I think, I think it's exciting and people should stay tuned so they can be part of the public engagement for the Dean's Park updates as well.
Wendy or Brandon or Brian, do you have any input you'd like to share about your thoughts on the design?
I'll just say I appreciate all the public engagement and love the design so far, and really appreciate the thoughtful comments and diligent work the Parks Commission's doing, and look forward to seeing this project done and Jason Kittner's work executing. So thank you very much for hosting tonight.
I could do a really quick thing if we're almost, are we out of town? If no one's going to talk about it. I would do I would put a bike rack in somewhere, a really simple one where people just put their bikes off. Otherwise, they're going to end up like on the trails and stuff. So I would do that. And then I think a while back we talked about some way to water things, like in the heat of the summer, things get really dry. Is there some, because we would take that on as the bike team. We could like try to keep things moist over there. I don't know. Other trails have done it. Other parks have done it. They have like a little watering station where you can like fill a little watering can and just sort of keep things from getting too dusty. So yeah, those are 2.
So Jay, are you talking about the plants? Or are you talking about the trails?
No, I'm actually talking. No, I'm not. Well, the trail. I would hope the plants we put in can survive. It's more the dirt on the trails, just to keep things a little wet, so it doesn't get all whatever dusty and blown out or whatever. And then that would be something we would sign up to do. Probably we'd probably say the bike team, one of our, like, if you guys build all this and we'll help build it, we would help do some help maintaining it, but we need a little bit of access to some water.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my two, and I'll stop.
We have 2 minutes left. Are there any burning questions Jason would love to answer?
Can I just ask Jay, so what is the age range of the mountain bike team?
Yeah,
Are
so
they-
we are, so that's a good question. So we are middle school and high school. But we love elementary school. Like, we love that there's going to be this bike playground. We want it. And just so you know, we aren't coming at this from, it's not like the bike team is going to take over this thing. Like, it's honestly, it is too small. Like, and what we do, the bike team is focused on cross country. We're really about endurance and cardio. So we do these long rides that I can barely hang on. I'm an assistant coach on the team. I can barely keep up. I really can't keep up with the seniors on the team, really. But we're into the sort of the cardio and the long distance riding. But there are jumps, there are drops. We did use Snake Hill for training. We will use this for training, but I don't know. We love this as an asset for the community, and we want little kids to be using it. And then maybe little kids will join the bike team, or at least love biking. We think biking is a good thing, so that's where we're coming at.
That's great.
All right, anything else? Jason, do you have any like specific questions? I could represent the bike team. Do you have any like bike team questions or anything, or no?
No, I think this has been, honestly, it's been very helpful for me to hear your
Okay.
feedback this evening. There's some very subtle things that we can do to help this facility, which, you know, I look at this facility, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great, but those little suggestions that you made, they aren't going to take a ton of capital, but they have a really lasting impact. So I got some good notes here. So thank you for that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And if you and the designer ever do want to just walk around out there, we're happy to just have a conversation. Not to try to change design, just to like talk like what is it going to look like and sort of walk it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I've gone over there with the diagram and tried to like sort of walk around. I can't tell if I'm going in the right places or not. I don't know.
We are trying to get this thing built this year as quickly as possible.
All right, no,
I'll know more next week.
reach out anytime. Like, we're happy to be involved and help in any way we can. And we want it to be safe too. We're not just trying to build some reckless thing.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, well, it looks like everyone is back. So we will do the same as we did for our previous breakout room. Why don't we mix things up a little bit? We'll start with Katie's group first.
Sure. So we talked about, the group kind of talked about how as users, it's sometimes difficult to tell what amenities look like when they're on a drawing or a plan, but they're excited and interested if there's ever an opportunity to go out and look at the site in person and get a little bit of a tour. That might be really helpful. We talked about whether or not, looking at the design and all of the great features that are planned, is there really enough space for that? And after going through the plan, there is, and the community members are really excited about that. We talked about the possibility of partnering with schools down the road, and how this project might align with other parks projects in the area, specifically playground replacement work that will be taking place at Dean Park. And then a couple features to make sure are included is a bike rack for bike storage so that bikes are orderly and safe and secure, and also possibly a watering station so users can wet the trail on hot and dry days so that there's not a lot of dust. That's helpful for bikers and also other park users.
All right, thank you, Katie. Let's go to Jen next.
All right, great. We had some great feedback. First, just really hoping that the features were exciting enough and accessible enough so that the park would create repeat users and be challenging for everyone. And then a desire to really take advantage of the elevation so that people keep loving it and using it over time. And then also really ensuring that there are advanced features for more upskilled riders and that people could skill build there. And then between the old park and the current design, we really looked at, was this more exciting or enticing potentially. And we noted again that the wooden jumps could be scary, slippery, unstable, and people haven't particularly trained on them, so they may not really trust them. We also talked about maybe having more jumps out of dirt or other, types of features, rollers, and things like that. The other thing we looked at was ways to increase the traction and safety if the wooden features were used, and whether or not skill building workshops could be added, perhaps to make those wooden features feel more accessible and enticing. There was a desire for some shelter for people who are spectating or hanging out and not on their bikes, and they would be able to watch and kind of enjoy each other's company in the park. And so those are really the majority of our points of feedback.
All right, thank you, Jenna. And next up, we'll go to Susanna.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let's see, our group also talked about the size of the area and just that there's a lot going on in that area. But because the design incorporates a lot of clear separation and things like that, that it will help with conflicts. The riders in our group they like most of the features, but maybe not the wood. That they've heard that it can be treated with something, but not really clear on how that would work. So again, the wood is coming up quite a bit. As far as things that could help with potential conflicts, oversight and safety is really important. So what is the oversight going to be in the park to make sure things are respectful of all users? Maybe providing a barrier to help kids, encourage them to have to walk their bikes. And then somebody added a comment about making signage consistent throughout. So between the parks around and the trails, make it consistent throughout the park, so you kind of feel like it's seamless, and that the bike park is part of the bigger park area. There were some suggestions to maybe look at providing some gardens and landscaping. So particularly restoring the city pea patches and the garden areas there. And then parking came up as well. So making sure that there's sufficient parking, especially for young families and users. Although, the anticipation is that most bikers and park users will probably ride there. It's a lot more centrally located, and just from experience at the other park, it will probably be a lot more convenient for folks. And I think that's about it.
All right, thank you. And we'll wrap up with Leslie and Elaine.
Great. Our group had a lot of similar topics that they discussed, especially about capacity and whether or not the space was big enough for all of the wonderful trails that were in there. One suggestion was to have a place to like a seat post bike rack so that bikes could stay upright and stay out of the trail and not end up on vegetation. Or even leaning them up on the fence. There was a question about what the design of the fence is. There was a suggestion about having some ride around features, especially as new riders come out on some of the beginner lines, that they might, need a safe out. And so having a ride around is a good, comfortable way for them to start to get comfortable with the line. There's a question or a thought on the bike tunnel that it looks, or there's a question about how many people could get through there and whether or not that might be a choke point and whether or not it might be considered for opening that up a little bit so there's a little more flow there. And then they love the intermediate jump line, posed a lot of challenge for them, which was exciting. And then the question or concern on the wood, again, was just like the other groups, is just in the Northwest, it's so slippery. And even when you do add the gritty paper that helps with the traction, it just is a maintenance item that needs to be considered.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. And thank you all for sharing your thoughts and ideas during our breakout rooms. I think it'll be very valuable to the design team as we try to get the design finalized. And now we're at the point at our agenda, we're gonna open it up for any questions or comments that you might have. So again, feel free to use the chat to pose questions, and we'll respond to those as they come in as best we can. And then you can also leave any comments in there as well.
Hey, Chris, this is Maddie. I'm sure you didn't intentionally leave our group out, but I wanted to share.
Oh, gosh, I am sorry.
I wanted to make sure that they had some great points, so I want to be able to share with the group.
I am so sorry, Maddie. I didn't mean to leave you. Just that I can't count tonight for some reason.
That's okay. So some of our group's favorite things about the park were the diversity that it offered, and it allows multiple kids and just a wide range of users a space to come ride. They also liked the separate access path down by the tennis courts, and they appreciated how in the updated design, we were using the elevation change on the west side of the park. Again, they wanted to look at some options for the wood features, maybe turning them to dirt or a different solution. They had some thoughts on the tunnel. Maybe it wasn't the most exciting feature and there could be something else to replace that. And perhaps moving the kids area away from that entrance location since it will be fairly congested. Our group thought that what was missing was an advanced line on the west side of the park. They would like to see some ride arounds for each of the features. There was a lot of discussion about adding a pump track, whether that was a dirt or an asphalt pump track. And they also wanted to see some like watering cans and just ways where kids could get involved and take ownership of the park. And there was also a suggestion to add a filter feature on the intermediate lines that would perhaps intimidate beginner users and discourage them from going down a line that they're not skilled enough to use. So they had some great thoughts, so happy to share them.
All right, thank you, Maddie, and I apologize for leaving you out. All right, well, at this point, we can, again, open it up to any questions or comments that you might want to pose in the chat. I know there's got to be some out there. I can't believe we answered. Oh, so first question is, will the park be open 24/7?
No. We will follow the rest of the park rules, which Elaine or Sam, if you're on, I believe is dawn to dusk, or correct me if I'm wrong, what the actual hours are out there, but it's usually dawn to dusk or thereabouts.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the parks. There isn't a universal start and stop, but generally that, or in some parks, it's 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Thank you. That was the time frame I was looking for.
All right, great question. Any others? Okay, so we have one in. I'm interested to know why the north access point, which we previously saw in the designs, was eliminated, and if the conflict between young students and cars was considered, given that bikes will need to ride down one of the two south entrances, likely during the times when car and pedestrian traffic is high after school, high along, I'm not sure what ICW is, but Island Crest Way after school.
So I'm happy to answer. Maddie, you can probably elaborate further. I think the short answer here is the adjustments to the design that have been made has been based off the feedback received to date, both through the, through the public meeting, through the Let's Talk, through the survey, through the feedback from the Parks Commission. So taking all of that feedback that we've received to date, we've modified the design based off that feedback and what our design team feels like is best for this specific project. So I don't know if Maddie, you have anything else further to elaborate on, but I think that's what it comes down to, is we are truly listening to the community and the feedback that we're getting and trying to modify and update the design to provide the best design possible for the space.
Yeah, I agree, Jason. I think if it is something the community and the commission wants to see is an additional access point on the north side. Our team is happy to incorporate that in the next phase.
All right, I will stop sharing the screen as someone has requested. Great idea. And there's another question here. Has the city considered liability issues should a biker walker interaction injure a walker, and who would be responsible?
I won't get into the responsibility piece. That is completely dependent upon situation, and then each situation is unique. What I will say in terms of a safety component, our design team stands behind the design that's being put forward as an engineered and approved design for this space based off of industry best practices. We are in consultation with our insurance authority as well as our city attorney's office in reviewing this specific project and all park projects. And so our goal is to design a facility that is safe and functional, that meets the needs of the community, and that's what we're working towards here. You know, in terms of liability and incidents that happen in the parks, again, those are pretty specific, and there's a lot of different external circumstances that can impact that discussion point and that specific incident. I will say if an incident does happen out the site, we are quick to investigate and look into what transpired and making sure that if improvements are needed or addressed, that our team is responding accordingly.
All right, thank you, Jason. Next question is there a water fountain in Children's Park, or will they use the water fountain and bathrooms at the south end of the large parking lot?
Elaine or Sam, I'm going to ask one of you to ask. I don't know the current status of our water features out at that facility right now.
Yeah, I believe the nearest one is at the bathroom by the baseball area. So there is, or is there one at the little single?
There may be one at the single restroom that's associated with Dean's Children's Park, but if that's not true, you know, it's something I think is worth looking into, whether that is a feature that we want to add to this area. But apologies that we can't answer that definitely.
All right, next includes a comment and a question. The first is thanking the city and the Parks Commission for seeking and incorporating public feedback. And then the question is, I would like to understand whether there will be a next step with an additional design proposed to address the built environment safety features requested in Island Crest Park.
So I think the short answer is yes, there will be additional opportunities for more public feedback. So we are trying to wrap up 30% design. So usually with the capital project on the parks side or public works side, we take them from 30 to 60%, 90%, and then 100%. That's sort of the standard practice in terms of a design for a construction project. Once you get to 90 to 100%, that's when you're going out to bid for a project. So we are nearing the end of the 30% design phase. That said, this process has had quite a bit of public engagement to date. We've heard quite a bit of feedback to date, and so going those next progressions in the design process can probably happen fairly quickly. And so that said, there will be additional opportunity to go back to the commission. We will be going back to the council with an update on the design, and we will continue to monitor our Let's Talk page and additional public engagement along the way between Parks Commission meetings and City Council meetings. Whether or not we have another standalone public meeting like this, I think that's to be determined. It's certainly a possibility. We haven't outlined that specific step yet, but it's something we will consider.
All right, let's see. Next up is there's a lot of vertical in the northwest corner of the park property leading down a bit of canyon. Was there any consideration to extending an advanced line through that part of the park?
Maddie, I'll let you take that one.
Yes, so the design that is proposed now is, it was designed with the tree survey and with the understanding that there will be no tree removal and we will work within the existing environment. So our team is fairly confident that we've utilized the west space the best we can at this point. But as Jason said, there's still room for the design to change as we get more feedback. So that could be an additional consideration. But there's some restrictions with that spot in the park. So we've designed features that we think will work with those restrictions and still offer some variety and some progression in the jump line.
All right, there's been a couple comments about the status of the drinking fountain near the tennis courts that's currently not working, and that there's a one stall bathroom and a water fountain right next to the Dragon. That would be the closest. Another comment about the safety features presented tonight include broadening paths, and that those safety features have a cost out that will need to be considered if those paths are widened, I think is the comment. Let's see. Another comment and question is, it seems there's a precedent for many of the safety issues with the skate park and Mercerdale Park in general, where younger kids, older kids, and adults congregate for recreation. There are some really little kids with scooters, while large adults are skateboarding. The users seem to respect each other's rights to access the space. At the Mercerdale walking path, you have seniors walking, little kids learning to ride bikes, joggers with and without strollers, and dogs on and off leash. Is it safe to assume that the liability issues are similar?
Similar, yes. The same, no. Like I said before, sort of each site has got its own sort of circumstances and factors that weigh into it. But yes, I think overall there's a similar functionality to it that would be considered here.
All right, another comment thanking the city for work on this project and looking forward to seeing the next steps. And let's see, another question. Does ARC have input on the maintenance schedule recommended for the wooden features working in the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, that is something that we are working with the American Ramp Company as we move through this process to make sure that our maintenance team that maintains and operates this facility are up to speed on what those maintenance practices and schedules will be. That will be a key component for this facility. And it's something that we are actively talking with ARC regarding what that looks like when this is completed.
All right, another question I'm sure a lot of people are excited about is, what is the anticipated completion date of this project?
We are working to try and go out to bid for this project later this spring. We're hoping to construct, I will say, early summer. That said, there's a lot of things that play into that. Obviously, there's additional public discussion that's going to take place with the commission and the council. There's some additional design work that takes place, and then we have to go out to bid this project. So that's the time frame we're working towards, that we've been working towards. We're holding that line. We're holding our consultant team to a very tight turnaround time. They've been delivering fantastically for us, which is great. But it's, we're trying to get this thing constructed later this summer, if all possible.
All right, another comment is, we have not yet addressed the approach to the extra BSA trail construction. That has been an occurrence historically, and I would like to see a definitive plan for quickly stopping and repairing any trails built outside. I believe there's a current BSA, I think is the.
Yeah, so I believe, Jennifer, I believe you're referring to the previous allowance of the bike skills users to actually build the jumps, which caused them to expand those jumps outside the bike skills area. Is that what you're referring to? If so, I can't hear you or see you, but You're shaking your head no. I can see your head shaking now.
There, I wasn't allowed to unmute. The host was not allowing me to unmute, but here I am.
I went ahead, yep, and let you do that, Jennifer.
Okay. Jason, what I was talking about is not the facility at Luther Burbank, rather trail excavation that has occurred in Island Crest Park.
Oh, Elaine, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. And Sam can certainly jump in as the parks operations manager also. So we have dealt with rogue trail building in the parks for, really decades, and it happens, right?
It does, right.
This happens. However, this is something that we're used to addressing as quickly as we hear about it. So as we know, if a unauthorized trail is built, the sooner that we can get to decommissioning it, the better. And so that's what our team has done historically. We put up signs, we drag logs across them. We really make it quite difficult for anyone to use this casually anymore so that it can revegetate as quickly as possible. So this is something we've seen, historically in Island Crest, Mercerdale, Pioneer, all over the place. And so I don't know that the practice would necessarily change in any appreciable way other than, we would ask the public, as always, to report those things as quickly as possible so that we can shut them down as quickly as possible. So we would really expect the community that uses that trail, to
report, which we've done. The problem
quickly.
that has happened is that and it's a very, very small percentage of cyclists coming through the park, but when it happens fast and the damage is extensive. I mean, I can walk you out there in the park right now and show you 3 different places within 500 yards of the proposed BSA where there have been extensive trails constructed and where the area has still not recovered. And I submit to you that with all due respect, you simply are not going to be able to keep up with it. I mean, neighbors have ended up repairing and blocking off many of those trails, even when they've been reported, even when there's signs. And I want to be proactive here and make a plan for how to do it. I mean, I feel like people have been fairly minimizing my concern about that since we've been talking about this, and it is a major concern. I mean, there's like a huge swath going from the long, steep part of the trail up to the BSA that some people constructed within a day or two, and that was years ago, and there is still not recovery of the slope. Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and cut you off here. We are at 7:30 and we have a couple more questions in the chat, which is typically why we mute people so that it allows for more participation. Is it okay?
If I may, like Chris pulls the next question up, I will say, Jennifer, Elaine and I will reach out to you independently and happy to talk about this further to make sure that we have a plan.
Just a plan. That's all I'm asking. It's just
We'll reach out to you separate from this and work something out.
That sounds good.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you, Jennifer. And yeah, I do want to respect everyone's time that we planned to end at 7:30, but I wanted to note that there were a couple more questions and comments about asking about will there be warning signage against rogue trails. And I don't know, maybe if that could be, maybe that's part of the signage plan.
Yeah, I think that's the short answer is that's part of the signage plan. And then obviously based off of the feedback we're hearing from Jennifer and others, that's something that we'll talk about to make sure that we have a plan in place to address the rogue trail building.
Yeah, and a couple other comments about signage in general, that there's signage to report dog owners who are not following park rules. So similar signage for rogue trails and jumps. Another comment about building trails is maybe the answer to the problem of rogue trails. And someone who agreed with that comment, that a good trail system eliminates the need for rogue trails. So I think at this point, I'm going to share my screen one more time so I can share with you the last slide. And I'm also going to put the Let's Talk page into the chat. That is the place where you can visit to get updates on the project, share comments, contact the city. And you can use that QR code if you want to scan that now, or also the link that I have there. I just wanted to thank everyone for your time and participation tonight. I know the city really appreciates all of your energy and thoughts about the bike skills area. And so just before we close, wanted to give my thanks to you, and then ask if Jason, if you had any final thoughts you wanted to share before we adjourn for the evening.
No, I'll just echo my sincere thanks to the group that participated this evening. Your feedback and input is invaluable in this process. So we appreciate you carving out an hour and a half with us this evening. Again, find us at the Let's Talk page. Your staff that are participating in this project, or you can reach us through that Let's Talk page as well. And so we certainly have some follow-up to do, but really appreciate you taking the time this evening and providing feedback on this important project.
All right, well, with that, we will close out the meeting. And again, thank you all for attending tonight, and stay tuned.